I stared at the certified letter from First National Bank, my hands trembling as the words blurred through sudden tears. $568,000, a mortgage in default, my name typed clearly beneath a house address I'd never seen. The foreclosure notice felt like ice in my fingers. Me, Aurora Mitchell, a single mother who'd never owned anything bigger than my 12-year-old Honda, suddenly owed more than $500,000. My entire savings, every penny scraped together for Emma's college fund, wouldn't cover even the interest. This had to be some terrible mistake. The morning air bit at my face as I rushed into First National Bank, still wearing my pediatric nurse scrubs from the night shift. Mr. Peterson, the loan officer, had kind eyes that turned troubled as he pulled up my file on his computer screen. "Ms. Mitchell, according to our records, you took out this mortgage 14 months ago," he said, swiveling his monitor toward me. 5-bedroom colonial, 427 Maple Grove Drive. My blood froze. That was Madison's new address, the house my younger sister had been bragging about at every family gathering. The one she claimed her husband Jake had bought after his promotion at the tech startup. "That's my sister's house," I whispered, leaning forward to study the documents displayed on the screen. "I never signed these papers." Mr. Peterson clicked through several pages, each one making my stomach sink deeper. The signature looked almost like mine, but the A was too sharp, the M too cramped. I knew that slightly off handwriting. I'd seen it on birthday cards where Madison had signed my name from both of us when she forgot to buy her own gift. "These employment records show you working at Technova Solutions." He continued pulling up pay stubs I'd never seen. Annual salary of $120,000. I almost laughed at the absurdity. I'm a pediatric nurse at Children's Memorial. I make $62,000 a year and haven't changed jobs in 8 years. More clicks revealed bank statements from accounts I didn't recognize showing deposits and balances that made my head spin. Someone had crafted an entire alternate financial life using my identity. Every document had my social security number, my birth date, even my mother's maiden name listed as security verification. "Mr. Peterson, I need to know how the down payment was made," I managed to say through the tightness in my throat. He traced through the records, then paused, his expression growing more concerned. "A cashier's check for $113,000 drawn from an account belonging to Robert and Sarah Mitchell, my parents." The room seemed to tilt as he showed me the withdrawal slip. There, clear as day, was Madison's signature on the power of attorney document dated just 2 weeks before the mortgage closing. "She has power of attorney for your parents," Mr. Peterson asked quietly. "For their medical decisions." I said, my voice hollow. "Dad had a minor stroke 2 years ago. We thought it would be easier if one of us could handle things in an emergency. But Madison had used it to drain their retirement account to steal their future along with mine." The evidence stared back at me from the computer screen, each document another betrayal carved into my trust. "Ms. Mitchell," Mr. Peterson said gently, "I think you need to contact law enforcement. This appears to be a clear case of identity theft and fraud." I nodded, unable to speak past the knot in my throat. 14 months. For over a year, my sister had been living in a house built on lies and stolen dreams, while I worked double shifts to save for Emma's education. Every family dinner where she'd smiled at me, every time she'd hugged me and called me the best big sister in the world, she'd been destroying my life behind my back. "Can you print everything?" I asked, finding my voice again. "Every single document. I'm going to need proof of what she's done." As the printer hummed to life, spitting out page after page of fraudulent loans taken in my name, I thought about the last time I'd seen Madison. She'd been wearing a new designer dress, laughing about how Jake's success meant she could finally quit her part-time job at the boutique. Now I knew the truth. There was no promotion, no success story, just my stolen identity and our parents' empty retirement account. The stack of papers grew thicker each page, another nail in the coffin of our sisterhood. Mr. Peterson handed them to me with sympathetic eyes, but I barely saw him through my rage and grief. Madison hadn't just stolen money. She'd stolen my trust, my security, my daughter's future, and our parents' golden years. I left the bank with enough evidence to destroy her house of cards. The question was whether I could destroy my own sister in the process. But as I sat in my car, looking at the foreclosure notice that could ruin everything I'd worked for, I realized Madison had already made that choice for me. She'd chosen her lies over our bond, her greed over my dreams. The drive to her house felt like preparing for war, because that's what this had become. And I was done being the victim in Madison's story. The pristine white columns of Madison's colonial house mocked me as I stood on her front porch, my finger hovering over the doorbell. Through the etched glass panels, I could see the chandelier I now knew had been bought with stolen dreams. My finger pressed down the chime, echoing through what should have been impossible luxury. Madison opened the door wearing a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than my monthly groceries. Her face lit up with that practiced smile until she saw my expression. "Aurora, what a surprise, come in, come in. The kids will be so happy to see Aunt Rory." I stepped into the marble foyer, my worn sneakers squeaking against stone that had been paid for with fraud. Her children, Aiden and Sophia, barely glanced up from their tablets, surrounded by toys that would have made Emma's childhood birthdays look pitiful in comparison. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steady despite the storm inside. "Privately." Something flickered in Madison's eyes, but she maintained her bright demeanor. "Of course kids keep playing. Mommy will be in the study." She led me past the granite kitchen island, through the dining room with its crystal chandelier, into a study lined with books I doubted she'd ever opened. The door clicked shut and her mask finally slipped. "What's this about?" she asked, but her hands were already trembling. I set the foreclosure notice on her mahogany desk. "You know exactly what this is about." The color drained from her face as she read the header. For a moment, silence stretched between us like a chasm 28 years in the making. Then, like a dam breaking, she collapsed into the leather chair, tears streaming down her carefully made-up face. "I can explain," she sobbed, but the words came out as desperate gasps. "Jake's gambling, it destroyed our credit. We were going to be homeless. The kids, Aurora, think about the kids." "Think about Emma," I shot back. "Think about Mom and Dad. You stole their entire retirement." "I was going to pay it back." Madison's voice pitched higher, her tears running black with mascara. "Every penny, I swear. Your credit was so good and I just needed to borrow it temporarily. I've been making the payments." "Stop lying." The words exploded from me. "You're 3 months behind. They're foreclosing Madison. In my name." She crumbled further, clutching at the desk edge. "I've been intercepting your mail, just the financial stuff. I didn't want to worry you. Credit card offers kept coming, and I thought if I could just juggle things until Jake found steady work." "How long?" My voice came out deadly quiet. "How long have you been stealing my mail?" 14 months, she whispered, "since we moved here." The precision of her betrayal stole my breath. Every birthday card that arrived late, every missing bank statement I'd had to request online, every credit card offer I'd assumed got lost in the mail. She'd been erasing me from my own financial life piece by piece. "I protected you," Madison continued, desperation making her words tumble faster. "Those credit cards I opened, I kept the balances low. The car loan, it's almost paid off. I filed your taxes and gave you the refund." "You filed my taxes?" Horror washed over me in new waves. "Madison, that's federal fraud." "I gave you the money," she protested as if that made it better. "Remember last April when I paid for Emma's school trip? That was your refund." My mind reeled, trying to process the depth of her deception. That school trip to Washington, D.C. had meant everything to Emma. Madison had made such a show of being the generous aunt, insisting it was her gift. But it had been my money all along, stolen and repackaged as her kindness. "I need all of it," I said, fighting to keep my voice level. "Every account, every card, every document you forged, and you're going to tell Jake everything." "I can't." Fresh panic flooded her features. "Aurora, please, I'm pregnant. We just found out last week. If Jake knows what I've done, he'll leave. The kids will lose their father." The news hit me like a physical blow. Another child to be born into this web of lies. Another innocent life Madison would use as a shield for her crimes. "You should have thought about that before you destroyed my life," I said, though the words tasted like ash. "Before you stole Emma's college fund." "I never touched Emma's money," Madison protested, then wilted under my stare. "Just a little, for the mortgage insurance. I was going to replace it." "With what money, Madison? With the job you quit, with Jake's non-existent promotion?" She buried her face in her hands, shoulders shaking. Through the study door, I could hear her children laughing at something on their tablets, blissfully unaware their entire life was built on their aunt's destruction. "I'll fix this," Madison mumbled through her fingers. "Give me time, please. You're my sister." "No." I said the word final as a judge's gavel. "A sister wouldn't do this. You're just someone who shares my DNA and used it to rob me blind." I turned to leave, but her next words stopped me cold. "I'm not the first person in this family to take what wasn't theirs," she said, her tear-stained face suddenly hard. "But I guess you were too young to remember what Mom and Dad did to keep your precious nursing school dreams alive." "What are you talking about?" A bitter smile twisted her lips. "Ask them about Grandma's first will, the one where I was supposed to get money for college, too. Ask them why I had to watch you become the golden child with the perfect career, while I scrape by with community college and retail jobs." "That's your excuse," disbelief colored my voice. "You think some imaginary slight from 20 years ago justifies destroying my life." "It wasn't imaginary." She stood swaying slightly, one hand pressed to her still flat stomach, in a gesture so calculated it made me sick. "But you wouldn't understand. Perfect Aurora with her perfect job and perfect daughter. You've never had to struggle like I have." I looked around the study at the house worth more than I'd make in a decade at her designer clothes and platinum wedding ring. "You're right. I've never had to struggle with felony charges, but you're about to." The color that had returned to her face fled again. "You wouldn't. Family doesn't do that to each other." "You already did," I said, opening the door. "The only difference is I'm being honest about it." Her children looked up as I passed, and Sophia waved with sticky fingers. "Bye, Aunt Rory." I managed to wave back my heartbreaking for these innocents who didn't know their world was built on quicksand. Behind me, Madison's sobs echoed through her stolen palace, but I didn't turn around. I couldn't afford sympathy, not when my own daughter's future hung in the balance. The afternoon sun felt too bright as I walked to my car, the weight of what came next pressing down on my shoulders. Madison had fired the first shot when she forged my signature. Now it was time to fight back, even if it meant destroying the family we'd once been. I sat in my car for a moment, hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to process her parting shot about our parents and some mysterious will. Was it another manipulation, or had my whole family been keeping secrets? Either way, I needed answers, and I knew exactly where to find them. My parents' dining room hadn't seen this much tension since Madison announced she was dropping out of college to marry Jake. I'd called the emergency family meeting for Sunday evening, knowing everyone would be available after Mom's traditional pot roast dinner. But tonight, the usual warmth felt suffocating. Madison arrived late, Jake trailing behind her with their usual excuses about traffic. She'd covered her swollen eyes with fresh makeup, but I could see the cracks in her facade. Our brother Daniel showed up last, still wearing his real estate blazer with Mitchell Properties embroidered on the pocket. "What's this about, sweetheart?" Mom asked, setting down her coffee cup with nervous fingers. At 63, Sarah Mitchell still colored her hair, the same honey blonde she'd worn in her teaching days, though stress had added lines around her gentle brown eyes. I placed the stack of bank documents in the center of the table, right between the sugar bowl and Mom's ancient, lazy Susan. Madison has been stealing my identity. She used my name to buy her house. The words fell like stones into still water, ripples of shock spreading across each face. Dad's hand trembled as he reached for his reading glasses, his movement still slightly impaired from the stroke that had given Madison power of attorney. "That's ridiculous," Jake said immediately, his former quarterback frame tensing for a fight. "Madison would never—" "Let her finish." Dad interrupted, his voice carrying the authority of his 30 years as a high school principal. Robert Mitchell might move slower these days, but his mind remained sharp as ever. I spread out the evidence methodically, the forged mortgage documents, the credit cards, the car loan, the tax returns. With each revelation, Mom's face grew paler while Dad's jaw set harder. Daniel leaned forward, studying the papers with professional interest that slowly morphed into horror. "Madison." Mom's voice came out as barely a whisper. "Tell me this isn't true." Madison's carefully constructed composure crumbled. "I can explain Jake's gambling problem destroyed us financially. The children needed stability. I was desperate. My gambling problem." Jake's face flushed red as he turned on his wife. "I haven't placed a bet in 2 years. You told me your parents gave us the down payment as an early inheritance." The room erupted. Accusations flew across the table like shrapnel. Mom crying. Dad's disappointed silence worse than any shout. Daniel pacing behind his chair, running calculations on his phone. Through it all, I sat quietly, letting the truth do its work. "How much?" Dad finally asked, his principal voice cutting through the chaos. $850,000 in total fraud, I said, including the $113,000 she took from your retirement account. Mom's coffee cup shattered against the hardwood floor. "Our retirement, Madison, that was for your father's medical care, I was going to pay it back." Madison shrieked, mascara streaming. "Aurora has everything. The career, the perfect daughter, everyone's respect. I just needed help." "So you destroyed her life?" Daniel's voice cracked with disbelief. "Aurora's been working doubles to save for Emma's college while you've been living like a queen on stolen money." Jake stood abruptly, chair scraping. "I need some air. I can't." "Madison, how could you lie to me too? Our whole life is built on fraud." "Don't you dare judge me," Madison shot back. "You couldn't keep a job for more than 6 months. Your startup dreams and get-rich-quick schemes left us drowning." "Stop," I commanded, surprised by the strength in my own voice. "This isn't about Jake's employment history or anyone's hurt feelings. Madison committed multiple felonies, identity theft, wire fraud, tax evasion. I'm filing charges tomorrow." "You can't." Mom reached across the table, grasping for my hand. "She's your sister. Family doesn't do this to each other." I pulled away from her reach. "She already did it to me, Mom, and to you and Dad. Your retirement is gone." "We'll figure something out," Mom pleaded, ever the peacemaker. "Perhaps if we all contribute—" "With what money?" I asked. "The college fund Madison stole. The savings I don't have because I'm a single mother, or maybe Daniel can mortgage one of his properties to pay for Madison's crimes." Daniel stopped pacing, his face pale. "Actually, about that—" He set down his phone with shaking hands. "I need to tell you all something." The room fell silent, all eyes turning to our brother. Daniel had always been the successful one, the golden boy who'd turned his real estate license into a thriving business. But now, he looked like a man approaching the gallows. "I helped her," he said quietly. "Not with the identity theft. I didn't know about that. But the mortgage. I connected Madison with a broker who's known for being flexible with documentation." Flexible. Dad's voice could have frozen water. "He doesn't ask too many questions if the down payment is solid," Daniel admitted. "I thought Madison was using her own credit, her own name. She told me you guys had gifted her the money and she just needed help navigating the application." "You knew?" I stared at my brother in disbelief. "You're a real estate professional and you didn't think to verify—" "I trusted my sister," Daniel shot back, "just like you did every time she intercepted your mail for over a year." "Don't you dare blame Aurora," Dad interjected, his principal voice sharp with authority. "She's the victim here." "We're all victims," Madison muttered, cradling her stomach. "Some of us were just victims earlier than others." What's that supposed to mean? I demanded. Madison laughed, bitter and broken. Tell her, Mom. Tell her about Grandma's original will. Tell her why I got community college while Aurora got the full university experience. Mom's sharp intake of breath told me everything. There was truth buried in Madison's manipulation, some family secret I'd been too young or too naive to notice. That has nothing to do with this, Mom said firmly, but her hands shook as she tried to clean up the broken coffee cup. It has everything to do with this. Madison stood swaying slightly. Aurora got $40,000 for nursing school from Grandma's estate. What did I get? A pat on the head and told to marry well. You were already married to Jake, Dad said quietly, and Grandma specifically earmarked that money for education. You dropped out. Because I couldn't afford to continue. Madison's voice rose to near hysteria. But perfect Aurora with her perfect grades got everything. So you decided to take everything from me 20 years later? I asked, incredulous. You've been planning revenge for 2 decades. No. Madison collapsed back into her chair. I didn't plan anything. When the bills started piling up and Jake couldn't find steady work, I remembered how easy everything had always been for you, how unfair it all was. Unfair. I stood my own anger finally breaking free. I worked nights cleaning offices to afford my textbooks. I lived on ramen and hope. I raised Emma alone after Marcus left without any help from any of you. Don't talk to me about easy... Girls, please, Mom begged, but I was done being the good daughter. No, Mom. No more peacekeeping. No more covering up. Madison stole my identity, destroyed my credit, and robbed my daughter's future. And you want me to pretend it's okay because of some decades-old grudge about Grandma's money. Jake returned from outside, his face set with decision. I want a divorce, he announced to the room, and full custody of the kids. I won't raise them with a criminal. Jake, please. Madison reached for him, but he stepped back. You made me an accomplice to fraud, he said coldly. Every mortgage payment we made, every time I believed your lies about your parents' generosity, you made me part of this. My children are living in a stolen house. Your children need their mother, Madison sobbed. I'm pregnant, Jake. Please. And whose credit did you use for the prenatal care? Jake asked. Whose insurance are you planning to defraud for the delivery? The question hung in the air like an accusation. Madison's guilty silence was answer enough. Oh my God, I whispered. You've been using my insurance too. Daniel sank into his chair. This is so much worse than I thought. Madison, do you understand you could go to federal prison, that your kids could end up in foster care? That won't happen, Madison said desperately, because Aurora won't press charges. She's too good, too noble. She won't destroy her own sister. Every eye in the room turned to me. The weight of their expectations, their fears, their hopes pressed down like a physical force. Mom's tears, Dad's disappointment, Daniel's guilt, Jake's anger, Madison's manipulation. Watch me, I said quietly. Madison's face transformed from desperate to vicious. Then I'll tell everyone about your perfect ex-husband Marcus, about why he really left, about the sealed court records from Emma's custody hearing. What court records? I asked, genuinely confused. Our divorce was uncontested. But Madison smiled through her tears, that same calculated expression she'd worn so many times before. Are you sure about that? Are you willing to bet Emma's reputation on it? Enough. Dad's hand slammed the table with surprising force. Madison Michelle Mitchell, you will stop this manipulation immediately. There are no sealed records because I helped Aurora with her divorce. Marcus left because he couldn't handle responsibility, period. Madison's bluff crumbled, leaving her exposed and desperate. But the damage was done. She'd shown everyone in the room exactly who she'd become, someone who would threaten her own sister with invented blackmail to escape consequences. I think we're done here, I said, gathering the documents. Mom, Dad, I'm sorry about your retirement. I'll help however I can. Daniel, you'll probably need your own lawyer. And Madison, I'll see you in court. I walked out of my childhood home, leaving behind the wreckage of our family. Behind me, voices rose in accusation and denial, but I didn't look back. Some bridges were meant to burn, especially when they were built on lies. The cool evening air hit my face as I reached my car. My phone already showed 3 missed calls from Emma, probably wondering why Sunday dinner was running so late. How could I explain that her aunt had stolen her future, that her grandparents were now broke, that her uncle might lose his real estate license? As I drove away, one thought kept circling. Madison had accused me of having everything easy, but she'd never understood the price of integrity. She'd never learned that trust once broken could never be fully repaired. And now she never would, because I was done being her safety net. Tomorrow I'd file the police report. Tonight I had to find the words to explain to my daughter why sometimes doing the right thing meant destroying the people you used to love. Catherine Walsh's law office occupied the top floor of a downtown building that screamed success with every polished surface. I'd found her through a coworker whose identity had been stolen by an ex-boyfriend. Catherine had not only won the case, but ensured the man faced maximum penalties. That's what I needed now, someone who wouldn't fold under family pressure. "This is extensive," Catherine said, adjusting her wire-rimmed glasses as she reviewed the documents I'd spread across her mahogany conference table. At 55, she had the kind of presence that made opposing lawyers' nervous silver hair pulled back in a severe bun that matched her no-nonsense reputation. "That's just what I found in the last week," I replied, gripping my coffee cup to keep my hand steady. "I have a feeling there's more." Catherine's expression remained neutral as she examined each forged signature, each fraudulent account, but I caught the slight tightening around her eyes. "Your instincts are correct, Ms. Mitchell. Identity theft of this magnitude rarely stops at 1 or 2 incidents. It's like an addiction that escalates over time." She pulled out a legal pad and began making notes in precise handwriting. "First, we need a complete audit of your financial history. Every account, every credit inquiry, every transaction for the past 5 years minimum." 5 years. My stomach dropped. "You think she's been doing this that long?" "The mortgage fraud was 14 months ago, but that level of sophistication doesn't happen overnight," Catherine explained. "Your sister knew exactly which documents to forge, which systems to exploit. That takes practice." She was right. Madison's tears and desperate excuses had almost made me forget the calculated precision of her crimes. This wasn't a panic decision, it was methodical destruction. "I'll need you to sign several forms." Catherine continued sliding papers toward me. "Authorization for a forensic accountant power of attorney, for me to act on your behalf, and formal complaints for the credit bureaus." As I signed my name over and over, each signature felt like drawing a battle line. Catherine made calls to her investigator, a former IRS agent named William Chen, who specialized in financial fraud. Within an hour, he'd joined us in the conference room, laptop open and fingers flying across the keyboard. First flag. William announced, pulling up my credit report on his screen. 6 credit cards opened in your name over the past 3 years, not just the recent ones. They started with small limits, building your credit profile for the bigger fraud. 3 years. While I'd been working nights to afford Emma's braces, Madison had been playing long-term chess with my identity. "Total debt across all cards?" Catherine asked. $47,000, William replied. But here's where it gets interesting. The spending patterns show major purchases at electronics stores, jewelry boutiques, high-end furniture places, not typical identity theft behavior of cash advances and quick liquidation. She was building her life with my credit. I said, the full picture becoming clear. Every time she showed up with new jewelry or the kids had the latest gaming systems. "Funded by you," Catherine finished. "What about the car loan your sister mentioned?" William's search revealed a $40,000 loan for a BMW SUV taken out 18 months ago. The payments had been mostly regular, just enough to keep it from hitting my credit report as delinquent. She was managing multiple fraudulent accounts like a portfolio, William observed with professional interest. making minimum payments to keep everything afloat while maximizing the credit available. It's actually quite sophisticated for a retail worker. I interrupted, anger flashing. Because that's all anyone thought Madison was capable of. Catherine placed a calming hand on my arm. No one's making excuses for her, but this level of organization suggests she might have had help or instruction. Has your sister shown any sudden expertise in financial matters? I thought back over the past few years looking for signs I'd missed. She started doing the books for Jake's friend's auto shop about 4 years ago, said she was taking online accounting courses. We'll need to investigate that connection. Catherine made another note. Now what about your parents' involvement? They're victims too, I said quickly. The $113,000 from their retirement was accessed using power of attorney, Catherine interrupted gently, which requires specific documentation. When exactly did your parents grant this power? I explained about Dad's mild stroke, how Madison had volunteered to handle their paperwork while he recovered. We'd all been grateful she'd stepped up, seen it as her finally taking responsibility. Now that selfless act looked like positioning for a longer con. Your daughter's college fund, Catherine continued. How much was taken? This was the part that hurt most. $15,000. Everything I'd saved since she was born. The IRS refunds your sister mentioned filing. William pulled up the records. 3 years of returns filed totaling approximately $12,000 in refunds, all deposited into an account not matching your known banks. $12,000 that should have gone to Emma's education. I said the betrayal fresh with each revelation. There's more, William said quietly. Your sister filed for several pandemic relief loans in your name. Small business assistance for a consulting firm that doesn't exist. My coffee cup slipped brown liquid spreading across the pristine table. Catherine smoothly moved the documents to safety while I stared at the screen showing loan amounts I couldn't process. How much? I whispered. $73,000 across various programs, William replied. All forgiven under PPP guidelines, so no repayment required. Pure profit for her. That's fraud against the federal government, Catherine said, her tone sharpening. This just became a federal case. Your sister isn't just facing state identity theft charges anymore. The room spun slightly as the full scope hit me. Madison hadn't just stolen my identity. She'd weaponized it against every system designed to help people in genuine need. But wait, I said, a new horror dawning. If she filed tax returns in my name, what about my actual returns? William's fingers flew over the keyboard, his expression darkening. You haven't filed in 3 years according to IRS records, but these returns show income from multiple sources, including your nursing salary. I file every year through the hospital's tax service, I protested. I have copies, which she intercepted and destroyed, Catherine concluded. Then filed her own versions to maximize refunds. The IRS has no record of your legitimate returns. So I'm in trouble with the IRS too. Panic edged my voice. No, Catherine said firmly. You're a victim of identity theft. We'll file the proper forms, submit your legitimate returns, and ensure the IRS understands what happened. But this is why we needed professionals involved. A knock on the door interrupted us. Catherine's assistant entered with a manila folder. Ms. Walsh, the initial background check you requested. Catherine scanned the contents, her poker face finally cracking. Aurora, were you aware your grandmother had significant assets when she passed? Just the education money she left me, I said. $40,000 for nursing school. According to these probate records, your grandmother's estate was valued at over $300,000. The will named both you and Madison as equal beneficiaries for education purposes, with your parents as trustees. The floor seemed to drop beneath me. Equal beneficiaries. But Madison said, Your sister received her share, Catherine continued. $50,000, which your parents confirmed she withdrew for business ventures with her then boyfriend Jake. The money was gone within 6 months. She lied. I breathed. At the family meeting, she made it sound like she got nothing. Manipulation requires selective truth, Catherine observed. She got money but squandered it while you used yours for its intended purpose. In her mind, that inequality justified everything that followed. William cleared his throat. There's one more thing. I've been tracking the offshore accounts your sister set up. She's been moving money in preparation to run. Run where? I asked. Based on the wire transfers somewhere without extradition treaties. She's been planning this for months, accelerating recently. If we don't act fast, she'll disappear with everything, Catherine finished. Aurora, we need to file charges immediately, today. Every hour we wait gives her more time to complete her exit strategy. I thought of Madison's pregnancy announcement, her tears, her desperation. Had that all been calculated too? Another manipulation to buy time. What about her kids? I asked. Aiden and Sophia, they're innocent in this. Oh, which is why we need to act responsibly, Catherine said. If their mother flees the country, those children lose everything. If she faces justice here, at least they have a chance at stability. She was right. Protecting Madison meant enabling her to inflict more damage, possibly abandoning her children entirely. The sister I'd grown up with was gone, replaced by someone who saw family as marks to exploit. There's evidence of another victim, William added quietly. Searches showing your grandmother's accounts being accessed after her death. Different banks, but similar patterns. Madison did this to Grandma too. The last piece of my heart reserved for sisterly love crumbled. 5 years ago, while your grandmother was in hospice, William confirmed, approximately $60,000 in withdrawals during her final months, listed as medical expenses, but the money went to the same accounts linked to your sister. Catherine gathered the papers with grim efficiency. This establishes a clear pattern of escalating financial crimes. Your sister didn't start with you. You were just the biggest target. How many victims are we talking about? I asked, though I dreaded the answer. Based on preliminary searches, at least 4 confirmed beyond you and your grandmother. Former employers, an ex-roommate, possibly others. Your sister has been running identity theft schemes for most of her adult life. The Madison I thought I knew completely evaporated. In her place stood a serial criminal who happened to share my DNA. Every childhood memory felt tainted now, wondering when my little sister had transformed from the girl who'd crawl into my bed during thunderstorms to the woman who'd steal my future without hesitation. I'll file the police report, I said, my voice steady with resolve. Whatever you need me to do, I'm ready. Catherine nodded approvingly. We'll start with local law enforcement, but this will quickly escalate to federal involvement. The FBI takes pandemic fraud very seriously. As we prepared to leave for the police station, one thought kept cycling through my mind. Madison had accused me of having everything easy, but she'd never understood that integrity came with its own price. Now she'd learned that consequences did too. One last thing, Catherine said as we gathered our documents. Your ex-husband, Marcus. Is there any chance your sister's threat about sealed records has merit? None, I said confidently. Marcus left because he couldn't handle being a father. The divorce was clean, no drama beyond his abandonment. Good, Catherine replied, because your sister will likely make more desperate claims as the walls close in. Truth is, your best defense against her lies. We left the office building as the afternoon sun cast long shadows between the skyscrapers. Somewhere in this city, Madison was probably still spinning stories, still believing she could manipulate her way out of consequences. She was wrong. The investigation had revealed more than just financial crimes. It had exposed the hollow core where her conscience should have been. And while part of me mourned the sister I'd lost the mother in, me knew exactly what needed to be done. Emma deserved justice. My parents deserved restitution. Madison's own children deserve better than a mother who'd built their lives on stolen foundations. Time to tear it all down and start rebuilding with truth. The drive to my parents' house felt like traveling back through time, each familiar street corner, holding memories of a childhood that now seemed like fiction. Madison and I catching fireflies in the Hendersons' yard, racing our bikes to the corner store for ice cream, promises to always protect each other whispered during sleepovers, all of it built on foundations I'd never thought to question. I found my parents in their living room, the afternoon light casting shadows across furniture they'd owned since before I was born. The same floral couch where Madison and I had watched Saturday morning cartoons, the coffee table where we'd played countless board games. Now it held bankruptcy paperwork and past due notices. "We need to talk about Grandma," I said without preamble. Mom's hand fluttered to her throat, a tell I recognized from every time she'd been caught keeping secrets. Dad set down his reading glasses with the deliberate movement of someone buying time to think. Catherine Walsh found the probate records. I continued settling into the armchair across from them. Madison got $50,000, the same amount I received. She lied at the family meeting. "It's complicated," Mom began, but I cut her off. "No, it's not. It's actually very simple. Madison got money for education and blew it on Jake's schemes. Then she played victim for 20 years while plotting to destroy me." "She was young," Dad said quietly. 19 and in love. Jake convinced her they could flip houses with that money. When it all fell apart, she was too proud to admit her mistake. "So you covered for her." The accusation hung between us. Let her paint herself as the neglected daughter while I worked myself to exhaustion. Mom's tears started then, the same tears that had always ended difficult conversations. But I was done being manipulated by Mitchell Women's Waterworks. "Did you know about Grandma's accounts?" I pressed. "The $60,000 Madison stole while Grandma was dying?" The silence stretched until it snapped like overtaxed elastic. Dad's shoulders sagged as Mom's tears became sobs. "We suspected," Dad finally admitted. "After the funeral, when we were settling the estate, there were discrepancies, withdrawals that didn't match the hospice bills. But Madison was pregnant with Aiden, struggling financially, and we thought, you thought it was better to enable a thief than face the truth." I finished. "She's our daughter," Mom's voice cracked. "You don't understand Aurora. You've always been so strong, so capable. Madison needed more help." "Help." I stood, anger propelling me to pace. "You call covering up federal crimes help? She didn't just steal from Grandma or me. There are other victims. Employers, roommates, anyone who trusted her enough to let their guard down." "We didn't know it had gone that far," Dad said, rubbing his temples. "We thought if we helped her get stable, she'd stop. Instead, you gave her power of attorney," I pointed out. "Access to everything you'd saved for retirement. How much is really gone?" They exchanged a look that told me everything. "All of it," Mom whispered. $173,000. She said she was investing it for us getting better returns than our savings account. "When?" "Over the last 2 years," Dad admitted. "Small amounts at first, then larger withdrawals. She showed us fake statements, kept us believing the money was growing." The cruelty of it stole my breath. Our parents who'd lived frugally their entire lives, who'd saved every penny to avoid being burdens in their old age, were now facing poverty because of their youngest daughter's greed. "What about the house?" I asked, noting the mortgage statements on the table. "We refinanced last year," Mom said. "Madison said interest rates were low, that we could save money monthly, but she pocketed the cash-out amount, $40,000. So you're in debt on a house you'd owned free and clear for a decade." The scope of Madison's betrayal kept expanding. "Mom, Dad, she's destroyed you financially. You'll have to work until you die." "We know," Dad said simply. "But what choice did we have? Turn our daughter over to the police?" "Yes." The word exploded from me. "That's exactly what you should have done 5 years ago when you first suspected. Maybe then she would have gotten help instead of escalating to destroying my life and Emma's future." A car door slammed outside. Through the window, I saw Emma getting out of her best friend Taylor's mom's car home from school. I'd have to explain everything soon. Find words to tell my daughter why her college fund had vanished, why her family was imploding. "Don't tell Emma yet," Mom pleaded correctly, reading my expression. More secrets. I laughed bitterly. That's your solution. Hide the truth until it explodes. Emma burst through the door, backpack swinging still in her school uniform from St. Mary's. Grand Gramps, Mom, what are you doing here? Just visiting. I managed, forcing normalcy into my voice. How was school? Fine, but everyone's talking about some drama on Madison's social media. She posted this weird thing about family betraying her. Emma pulled out her phone. Look. The Instagram post made my blood run cold. Madison tears streaming holding Aiden and Sophia. The caption read, "When your own sister tries to destroy your children's lives out of jealousy. Some people can't stand seeing others happy. Pray for us." The comments were already piling up. Extended family members offering support, friends condemning the unnamed cruel sister, church members promising prayers. Madison had fired the first shot in a public war I'd never wanted. Is she talking about you? Emma asked, her sharp intelligence cutting through pretense. I looked at my daughter, 16 years of honesty between us, and made a choice. We need to talk. All of us. Emma, sit down. Aurora, no. Mom protested, but I was done protecting Madison at Emma's expense. Your Aunt Madison has been stealing from us, I said simply. From all of us. She used my name to take out loans, stole your college fund, and emptied your grandparents' retirement accounts. Emma's face cycled through confusion, disbelief, and finally anger. My college fund. The one you've been saving since I was a baby? $15,000, I confirmed, plus more through fraudulent tax returns she filed in my name. That's why you've been working so many double shifts, Emma said slowly, pieces clicking together. You were trying to replace it without worrying me. My brilliant girl. Even now she thought of others first. We'll figure it out, I promised. Scholarships, loans, whatever it takes. You're going to college. With what credit? Emma asked, proving she'd inherited more than just my eye color. If Aunt Madison destroyed your credit, how will you co-sign loans? The question I'd been avoiding. We'll find a way. This is insane. Emma stood pacing like I had. She's posting lies about you while living in a house bought with your name, and everyone's just okay with this. Not everyone, I said. I've hired a lawyer. We're pressing charges. Good. Emma's vehemence surprised everyone. I'm tired of watching you sacrifice everything while she plays victim. Remember last Christmas when she gave me that designer purse? Was that bought with stolen money too? I nodded, and Emma pulled out her phone with decisive movements. Then I'm selling it. Every gift she's given me. I don't want anything paid for with theft. Emma, sweetheart. Mom reached for her granddaughter, but Emma stepped back. No, Gran. You don't get to make excuses for her anymore. She stole my future. She stole your retirement. She's trying to steal Mom's reputation. When does it stop? When we stop protecting her, I said, proud of my daughter's strength. When we let her face consequences. Emma turned her phone toward us. She's going live on Instagram. This should be good. Madison's tear-stained face filled the screen. She sat in her stolen luxury kitchen tissue box, strategically placed wedding ring, catching the light as she dabbed her eyes. Family is supposed to support each other. She began voice hitching. But sometimes jealousy runs so deep it poisons everything. My own sister, who I've loved my whole life, is trying to destroy me because she can't stand seeing me happy. The comments flooded in hearts and support from people who had no idea they were watching a criminal performance. Madison continued spinning her tale, each word carefully crafted to paint me as the villain. She's always resented that I found love while she's alone, that I have this beautiful home while she struggles. Now she's making up horrible lies trying to take everything from my babies. Turn it off, I said, but Emma was already typing. What are you doing? Setting the record straight, Emma replied, fingers flying. If she wants to go public, let's go public. Before I could stop her, Emma posted, interesting story from someone who stole my college fund and my mom's identity. Can't wait for the FBI to watch this confession. The live stream stuttered as Madison read the comment. Her face flushed, the tears stopping as anger flashed across her features. but she recovered quickly, too quickly. "See how they attack me," she said to her audience, "even turning my niece against me with lies. This is what I'm dealing with. A sister so consumed by bitterness she'd use her own daughter as a weapon." My phone rang. Catherine Walsh. "Are you watching this?" my lawyer asked without preamble. "Unfortunately." "Good, she's digging her own grave. Document everything. The FBI loves when suspects confess publicly." Small comfort as I watched my extended family choose sides in Madison's comments. Cousins I'd grown up with calling me heartless. Aunts questioning how I could do this to a pregnant woman. Uncle Jeffrey, who'd borrowed money from me last year, suddenly Team Madison. "Mom, I'm sorry," Emma said quietly, seeing my face. "I shouldn't have engaged." "No," I said firmly. "You stood up for truth. That's never wrong." "But now everyone hates you." Emma's voice broke. "And it's all lies. Anyone who believes her without hearing my side isn't worth keeping." I said, though each lost relationship stung. Truth has a way of surfacing. "How can you be so calm?" Dad asked. "She's destroying your reputation." "Because I have proof," I replied. "She has tears and manipulation. Let's see which holds up in court." Madison ended her live stream with a plea for prayers and a GoFundMe link for legal expenses. The audacity of it begging for money while sitting in a kitchen funded by identity theft, wearing jewelry bought with my credit. "I should go," I said, exhausted by the emotional warfare. "Emma, get your homework. We're leaving." "Aurora," Mom called as we headed for the door. "She's still our daughter, still your sister." "No," I said with finality. "My sister died the day she decided my identity was worth less than her comfort. That woman on Instagram, she's just a criminal who happens to share our DNA." Emma and I drove home in silence, both processing the apocalypse of our family structure. As we pulled into our modest apartment complex, so different from Madison's stolen palace, Emma finally spoke. "Mom, I know this is horrible, but I'm proud of you for not backing down, for fighting back." "Even though it's costing us everything?" I asked. "Especially then," Emma said firmly. "Madison counted on you being too good to fight dirty, but standing up to criminals isn't dirty, it's necessary." My 16-year-old daughter already wiser than the adults who'd enabled Madison for years. Maybe we'd lost my college savings for her, but Emma had something worth more integrity and the courage to defend it. Inside our apartment, I helped Emma with her calculus homework while fielding texts from family members who'd seen the Instagram drama. Some supported me, others condemned, most wanted more information before choosing sides. I ignored them all. The court of public opinion mattered less than actual court, where evidence trumped tears. That night, as Emma slept, I sat at our small kitchen table reviewing the forensic accountant's report. Each line item, another betrayal, another theft, another lie. But also evidence. Proof that would stand up when Madison's tears dried and the truth demanded its due. Tomorrow, I'd file the police report that would begin the end of Madison's charade. Tonight, I mourned the family we'd lost and prepared for the war my sister had started. She'd fired the first shot with her social media campaign. She had no idea what was coming next. The Riverside Police Department's Financial Crimes Division occupied a bland government building that smelled of burnt coffee and industrial disinfectant. I sat across from Detective James Morrison, a man whose weary eyes suggested he'd seen every possible variation of human greed. "Ms. Mitchell," he said, reviewing the stack of evidence Catherine Walsh and I had assembled. "This is one of the most comprehensive identity theft cases I've encountered. Your documentation is exemplary." My lawyer insisted on thoroughness. I replied, watching him examine each forged signature with a magnifying glass. "Smart lawyer." Detective Morrison made notes on his tablet. "Most victims come in with fragments. You've brought a federal case." He was in his 50s with silver threading through dark hair and the kind of patient demeanor that probably served him well interviewing criminals. As he worked through the documents, occasionally asking clarifying questions, I felt the machinery of justice finally grinding into motion. The mortgage fraud alone is serious, he explained. But combined with the pandemic loan fraud, we're looking at federal charges. I'll be coordinating with the FBI's white-collar crime unit. A knock interrupted us. A younger officer entered with printed screenshots. Detective, you need to see this. The suspect is actively fundraising online. Detective Morrison's expression hardened as he reviewed Madison's GoFundMe page. Help a mother of 3 fight false accusations had already raised $8,000 in 2 days. She's claiming you're trying to steal her children, he noted, using the donations for legal defense. This could constitute fraud if she knows the accusations are true. She knows, I said firmly. She forged every signature personally. We'll add it to the charges, he assured me. Now I need to warn you about something. Once we arrest your sister, this becomes public record. The media might pick it up, especially given the amount involved. I understand. I said, though, the thought of more public scrutiny made my stomach clench. Whatever it takes to stop her. We spent 3 hours going through every detail. Detective Morrison was particularly interested in the pattern of escalation, how Madison had started small and built up to major fraud. He showed me similar cases explaining how identity thieves rarely stopped until caught. Your sister fits the profile of a serial fraudster, he explained. The family connection just made you easier targets. These people often have what we call selective sociopathy. They can seem loving and normal while simultaneously destroying those closest to them. As I left the police station, my phone buzzed with messages. The family group chat had exploded. Someone had spotted me entering the police building and word spread like wildfire. Accusations flew from Madison's supporters, pleas for reconciliation from the fence-sitters, and surprisingly, support from unexpected quarters. Cousin Patricia. Finally, someone's stopping her. She borrowed $3,000 from me last year, never paid back. Great Aunt Helen. That girl stole from the church fundraiser in '98. We all pretended not to know. Uncle Steve. She destroyed my credit in college. I stayed quiet for family peace. No more. Each message revealed another victim, another crime swept under the rug of family harmony. Madison had been a one-woman crime wave for over 2 decades, protected by relatives too embarrassed or too kind to speak up. I picked Emma up from school, finding her in the library researching identity theft statistics for a presentation. I'm turning our situation into my senior project, she announced. Financial literacy and protecting yourself from family fraud. Mrs. Chen approved it this morning. Are you sure you want to be that public about it? I asked, worried about teenage cruelty. Someone has to be. Emma gathered her materials. Do you know how many kids my age have no idea their parents could destroy their credit before they even turn 18? If our story helps one person avoid this, it's worth it. My daughter finding purpose in our pain, making something constructive from Madison's destruction. We stopped at our lawyer's office where Catherine Walsh waited with more developments. Madison hired Vincent Crawley. She informed us naming a defense attorney known for taking questionable cases. He's already filed motions claiming mental distress and coercion. Coercion? I asked, incredulous. She's claiming you and your parents pressured her into taking the loans that you were all complicit until you turned on her, Catherine explained. It's a desperate strategy, but Crawley specializes in muddying water. But we have evidence, which is why we'll win, Catherine assured me. But prepare for character assassination. Crawley will dig into every aspect of your life looking for dirt. Let him dig, I said. I've got nothing to hide. Everyone has something, Catherine warned. A bounce check from college, a parking ticket, anything they can spin to damage your credibility. Stay off social media, don't engage with family drama, and document any contact from Madison or her supporters. That evening, Grace Chen arrived at our apartment. My best friend since middle school had evolved from the shy girl who helped me with math homework into a forensic accountant who could track financial crimes like a bloodhound. She'd volunteered her expertise, pro bono, horrified by Madison's betrayal. I found 3 more victims, Grace announced, setting up her laptop on our kitchen table. Former roommates from Madison's community college days. Small amounts, but it establishes pattern behavior going back 16 years. 16 years, I repeated, trying to process the timeline. She's been doing this since she was 19. At least, Grace pulled up spreadsheets that made my head spin. But here's the interesting part. Remember Jake's auto shop job, the one where Madison supposedly learned bookkeeping? I nodded, and Grace smiled grimly. The shop was investigated for insurance fraud 2 years ago. Nothing proven, but claims were inflated consistently during Madison's employment. She wasn't learning legitimate bookkeeping. She was learning how to cook books. So Jake knew, Emma asked, looking up from her homework. Possibly, Grace hedged, or Madison learned by watching others and applied it to her personal crimes. Either way, she had training. As Grace walked us through the financial web Madison had woven, my phone rang. Unknown number, but Catherine had warned me to answer everything in case it was law enforcement. Aurora. Madison's voice, but different, harder. The tears were gone. I shouldn't be talking to you, I said, putting her on speaker and starting my recording app. Then listen, she snapped. Drop the charges. Tell them you made a mistake. I'll pay back some of what I took and we all move forward. I almost laughed. Madison, you stole $850,000 from multiple victims. I preserved our family's lifestyle. Her mask slipped completely. Do you know what it's like watching your perfect sister succeed while your husband can't hold a job? Seeing your parents fawn over Aurora, the nurse, while treating you like a failure? So you decided to become an actual criminal. I decided to level the playing field. Madison's voice turned cold. And I'll level it again if you don't back off. I know things about you, Aurora. Things Emma doesn't know, about why Marcus really left. Marcus left because he was selfish, I said evenly, though my heart raced. There's no secret. Isn't there? Madison's tone turned sly. What about the miscarriage? The one you never told him about, the pregnancy you hid, because you knew he'd leave if there was another baby. The words hit like physical blows. I'd never told anyone about that lost pregnancy, the grief I'd carried alone, rather than trap Marcus with another child he didn't want. How? I went through your medical bills, remember insurance statements, EOBs. I know everything, Aurora, every secret, every weakness. Back off, or Emma learns what kind of mother you really are. The kind who protects her daughter from toxic people, I said, finding my voice. Goodbye, Madison. I hung up, hands shaking. Grace and Emma stared at me, questions in their eyes. Mom, Emma's voice was small. What was she talking about? Manipulation. I said, choosing truth over Madison's weapon. When you were 3, I had a miscarriage. I never told your father because our marriage was already failing and I didn't want to use a pregnancy to save it. Madison thinks she can hurt me with that, but secrets only have power in darkness. Emma absorbed this, then crossed to hug me. You protected me even then, made the hard choice alone. Madison could never understand that kind of love. Grace saved the recording, adding it to our evidence. She just threatened witness tampering and extortion. Your sister really doesn't understand how badly she's destroying her own case. Over the next days, the legal machinery accelerated. Detective Morrison called with updates. The FBI had taken interest. Madison's assets were being frozen by court order. Her fundraising page was under investigation. The house of cards was collapsing. But Madison fought with cornered animal desperation. She hired a publicist to manage her image, gave interviews to local bloggers about being victimized by a jealous sister, posted constant updates about her children's suffering, her pregnancy complications from stress, her husband's job loss due to the scandal. Each post was calculated for maximum sympathy, minimum truth. But for every supporter, she gained another victim, emerged from silence. The forensic accounting revealed decades of theft, dozens of lives damaged by her greed. 23 victims identified so far, Grace reported at our next meeting. Total theft approaching $1.2 million over 16 years. The number staggered me. Madison hadn't just stolen from family. She'd been a one-woman financial plague, destroying credit and dreams wherever she went. How did no one catch this sooner? I asked. Because she chose victims carefully, Grace explained. Family who wouldn't prosecute, employers too small to have robust security, roommates who'd blame themselves for missing money. She's actually quite brilliant in her targeting. Brilliant. My little sister, the one I'd helped with homework and protected from bullies, had grown up to be a brilliant criminal. The waste of it burned. That night, while reviewing more evidence, Emma looked up from her laptop with a troubled expression. Mom, Aunt Madison posted something weird. A photo of you from college with some guy who isn't Dad. She's asking if anyone knows who he is. I looked at the screen, seeing a photo I hadn't thought about in 20 years. Me at 19, laughing with Christopher, the boyfriend, before Marcus. Madison was fishing for scandal, trying to construct a narrative of me as unfaithful or deceptive. That's Christopher, I told Emma. We dated sophomore year 2 years before I met your father. Madison's trying to create a story that doesn't exist. So we fight back with truth, Emma asked. Always, I confirmed. Truth is the only weapon worth wielding. But Madison had more ammunition. Over the following days, she posted selectively edited texts, ancient emails, photos, stripped of context, building a case in the court of public opinion that I was unstable, jealous, a pathological liar who'd turned my family against poor innocent Madison. Some believed her. Former friends questioned whether I was really a victim or secretly the perpetrator. Co-workers whispered when I passed. Even some hospital administration wondered if the drama would affect my work. Through it all, Catherine Walsh remained steady. This is desperation. She's throwing everything at the wall, hoping something sticks. But courts care about evidence, not social media narratives. The evidence was damning. Every forged document, every fraudulent transaction, every victim statement built an insurmountable case. Madison could spin stories forever, but she couldn't spin away her own signature on stolen documents. The prosecutor is ready to file charges, Catherine informed me during a late-night strategy session. 27 federal counts, 18 state counts. She's looking at 30 years if convicted on all charges. 30 years. My sister would be in her 70s when released. Her children would be adults who barely remembered her. The baby she carried would know her only through prison visits. Are you having second thoughts? Catherine asked, reading my expression. No, I said firmly, just mourning what could have been if she'd chosen differently. Criminals always have choices, Catherine reminded me. Madison chose to steal rather than work, chose to lie rather than struggle, chose to destroy rather than build. These are the consequences of those choices. As we prepared for the coming legal storm, I thought about the family dinners we'd never have again, the holidays forever fractured, the cousins choosing sides, the parents broken by their youngest daughter's betrayal. But I also thought about Emma's future restored by justice, other victims getting restitution, future targets protected from Madison's schemes. Sometimes love meant letting someone face consequences. Sometimes protection meant stepping aside and letting justice work. Tomorrow Madison would be arrested. Tonight I sat with Emma as she worked on her senior project presentation, turning our tragedy into education for others. I'm calling it When Family Fails Protecting Yourself from Financial Predators, she announced. Perfect title, I said, proud of her strength. I'm going to include resources for victims, Emma continued. Support groups, legal aid, credit repair services. If Madison's crimes can help prevent others, maybe something good comes from this. Something good from ashes, trust from betrayal's ruins, justice from family's wreckage. It wasn't the story I'd wanted to write with my life, but it was the truth. And truth, unlike Madison's elaborate fictions, would stand. Grace Chen transformed our small dining table into a war room. Color-coded folders spread across every surface, each one containing another piece of Madison's fraudulent puzzle. Her laptop hummed with spreadsheets while my phone buzzed constantly with updates from Catherine Walsh and Detective Morrison. This is remarkable, Grace muttered, cross-referencing bank statements. Your sister created 17 different email addresses to manage her schemes, each one linked to different aspects of the fraud. She compartmentalized like a professional criminal. I studied the web of deception mapped out before us, lines connecting fake employers to fraudulent tax returns, phantom businesses to pandemic loans, forged signatures to devastating consequences. Madison hadn't just stolen my identity, she'd built an entire criminal enterprise around it. Look at this. Grace pointed to a series of transactions. She was careful to keep individual thefts under $10,000 to avoid federal reporting requirements. But here she got greedy. The mortgage broke her pattern. And that's what exposed everything, I realized. If she'd stayed small, she might have continued indefinitely. Criminal escalation, Grace explained. They always push boundaries until they break. Your sister thought she'd perfected the system. Emma arrived home from school immediately joining our investigation. She'd become invested in understanding every detail, channeling her anger into methodical research. I found something, she announced, pulling out printed screenshots. Madison's been running similar schemes on Facebook Marketplace, selling items she doesn't own, taking deposits, then blocking buyers. How did you find this? I asked, concerned about her involvement. Created a fake profile and joined local selling groups, Emma admitted. Found 12 complaints about someone matching Madison's description. Different names, but same pattern. Grace added the information to our growing database. Petty fraud compared to the identity theft, but it establishes behavior patterns. Prosecutors love patterns. My phone rang. Catherine Walsh, her usually calm voice tinged with excitement. Aurora, we just received security footage from 5 banks. Madison conducting transactions while you were proven to be at work. Visual evidence of her impersonating you. She went to banks in person. I couldn't hide my shock. Wearing similar clothes to your work scrub's hair, styled like yours. She studied you, Aurora, learned your mannerisms, your signature, even your verbal patterns. The tellers genuinely believed they were serving you. The violation felt fresh again. My own sister studying me like a mark, learning to wear my identity like a costume. Every family gathering had been reconnaissance. Every shared meal an opportunity to perfect her impersonation. There's more. Catherine continued. The FBI tracked the offshore accounts. She's moved over $200,000 internationally. They're working with Interpol to freeze the funds. Can they recover it? Possibly. But more importantly, it proves intent to flee. No judge will grant bail with that evidence. After the call, I sat staring at the security footage Catherine had emailed. Grainy, but clear enough to see Madison entering a bank, approaching a teller, signing my name to withdraw money from accounts I didn't know existed. She moved with confidence, even chatting with the bank employees. She really became you, Emma said quietly, watching over my shoulder. No, I corrected. She wore me like a mask, but underneath she was always herself. That evening, Marcus arrived unexpectedly. My ex-husband stood at our door looking uncomfortable, but determined. At 6'4", with the build of the construction foreman he'd become, he still cut an imposing figure. But his eyes held the same uncertainty they'd shown the day he'd admitted fatherhood was too much responsibility. I heard what Madison did, he said simply. I want to help. Since when do you help? Emma's voice carried years of abandonment. Emma, I warned, though I understood her anger. It's okay, Marcus said, meeting his daughter's glare. I deserve that. I've been a terrible father, but I'm still an FBI agent, and what Madison's doing is wrong. I'd forgotten about Marcus's career change after our divorce. He joined the Bureau partly to prove he could commit to something, partly to escape the guilt of leaving us. Now that background might prove useful. What kind of help? I asked cautiously. Digital forensics, he offered. My department specializes in cyber-enabled financial crimes. I can fast-track evidence analysis, ensure nothing gets overlooked. Why would you do that? Emma demanded. Marcus looked at his daughter with something like pain. Because I failed you both once. Maybe I can help make something right now. I made a decision based on pragmatism rather than forgiveness. Fine. Grace can share what we have, but this doesn't change anything between us. I know, Marcus said quietly. I'm not trying to fix the past, just help with the present. Over the next hours, Marcus proved his worth. His FBI access revealed Madison had purchased software specifically designed for creating fake documents. She'd taken online courses in graphic design and digital manipulation, every tool of deception deliberately acquired. This is sophisticated planning, Marcus observed. Your sister didn't stumble into identity theft. She trained for it. While I was working double shifts to pay for Emma's school, I said bitterly. She studied you like a subject, Marcus continued. Look at these purchases. Voice recording equipment, handwriting analysis books, even a course on method acting. She prepared for this like a role. Detective Morrison arrived as we worked, bringing additional evidence that made my stomach turn. We found a storage unit rented in your name, Aurora. Want to guess what was inside? I couldn't imagine. What? Boxes of documents from every aspect of your life. School records, medical files, employment history. She even had your childhood diary, plus documents from at least 30 other victims. She's been collecting identities like trophies. The diary detail broke something inside me. I'd wondered where it went during a move years ago, assumed it was lost. But Madison had taken it, read my teenage thoughts and dreams, mining my past for useful details. There's something else, Detective Morrison continued. We found evidence she's been grooming her children to participate, teaching them to lie about their address for school enrollment, having them answer phones with false information. She's turning her kids into accomplices. Grace looked horrified. Child Services is now involved, the detective confirmed. This goes beyond financial crimes. She's endangering her children's moral development. As if summoned by the mention of her children, Madison called. I almost didn't answer, but Catherine had advised recording every interaction. You've destroyed my life, she said without preamble. No tears now, just cold fury. Jake filed for divorce. My kids are being questioned by social workers. I'm on house arrest with an ankle monitor like some common criminal. You are a criminal, I stated flatly. I'm a mother who did what she had to do. Madison's voice rose. You have no idea what it's like watching everyone else succeed while you fail. Mom and Dad giving you money for school while telling me to marry well. You getting promoted while I got laid off from every retail job. Even our cousins had better lives. So you decided to steal those lives. I decided to take what should have been mine. The rawness in her voice revealed the depths of her entitlement. If Grandma's money had been split fairly, if Mom and Dad had helped me, like they helped you if anyone had given me a chance. I gave you chances, I interrupted. Covered your rent 3 times, bought your kids Christmas presents when you claimed Jake was between jobs, never asked for repayment. Charity, she spat. Perfect Aurora's charity. Do you know how that felt? Taking handouts from my successful sister while living in a roach-infested apartment. So you stole my life instead. I took what I deserved. Madison's voice dropped dangerously. And if you don't drop these charges, I'll destroy what's left of yours. I have photos, Aurora, from that bachelorette party in Vegas before you married Marcus. The one where I drank too much and danced on a bar. I finished. Madison, I was 23. That's not blackmail material. The photos suggest more than dancing, she threatened. Amazing what angles and captions can imply. Marcus, who'd been listening, shook his head. She really doesn't understand she's adding extortion charges, does she? She's desperate, Grace observed, throwing everything at the wall. Let her, I said, exhausted by her threats. I'm not dropping charges, Madison, not for fake scandals, not for tears, not for anything. Then you've killed me, Madison said dramatically. When I'm in prison and my children are in foster care and my baby is born behind bars, remember you did this. You killed your own sister. No, I said firmly. You killed the sister I thought I had. I'm just burying the body. The call ended with her cursing me, but I felt only relief. Every conversation revealed more of the stranger she'd become, or perhaps always was. We worked through the night assembling evidence into prosecutorial packages. Each folder represented a life disrupted, a dream deferred, trust betrayed. By dawn, we had 8 boxes of meticulously organized proof. "This is bulletproof," Marcus said, professional admiration in his voice. "I've seen federal cases with less evidence get convictions. Your sister is finished." Emma had fallen asleep on the couch, still clutching victim statements she'd been organizing. I covered her with a blanket, grateful she'd inherited my strength rather than Madison's moral flexibility. "She's remarkable," Marcus said quietly, "despite having me for a father." "Because of having me for a mother," I corrected. "Don't mistake my accepting help for forgiveness, Marcus." "I don't," he assured me. "I just want you to know I'm proud of how you've handled this, both of you." Grace packed up her equipment as the sun rose, promising to return later with final analysis. Detective Morrison took the evidence boxes, each one carefully labeled and sealed. "The prosecutor will be in touch," he informed me. "With this evidence and the FBI involvement, we're looking at a strong case. Your sister's attorney is good, but he can't argue with facts." As everyone left, I sat in my empty apartment surrounded by the ghost of our investigation. Every surface that had held evidence of Madison's crimes now bore only coffee rings and pen marks. But the truth remained solid and undeniable. Emma stirred, waking with the disorientation of someone who'd slept in their clothes. "Is it over?" "The evidence gathering is done," I told her. "Now we wait for justice to work." "Will it?" she asked with the skepticism of a generation raised on true crime podcasts. "Or will Aunt Madison find another way to manipulate the system?" "Not this time," I said with certainty. "She's out of moves, out of masks, out of other people's lives to steal. All that's left is accountability." Emma nodded, then surprised me with a hug. "I'm proud of you, Mom, for not backing down, for protecting others from her, for choosing truth even when it cost us everything." "We haven't lost everything," I reminded her. "We still have integrity. We still have each other. We still have a future Madison can't steal. And we have 8 boxes of evidence that she tried," Emma added with grim satisfaction. As we prepared for the day ahead, I thought about the security footage of Madison impersonating me. She'd studied my walk, my gestures, my smile, but she'd never understood what actually made me who I was. The willingness to work double shifts for my daughter's future. The ability to forgive Marcus enough to accept his help. The strength to stand up to family when they crossed moral lines. Madison could steal my signature, my credit, even my financial identity, but she could never steal my character. And in the end, that's what would save me and doom her. The evidence was complete. The trap was set. All that remained was springing it on the sister who'd made herself a stranger, one theft at a time. Madison's Instagram transformation from suburban mom to persecuted victim happened with theatrical precision. Gone were the designer clothes and perfectly styled hair. In their place appeared a woman in worn sweats, no makeup, dark circles painted under eyes that had mastered the art of tearing up on cue. Day 12 of my sister's vendetta. She whispered to her phone camera, voice cracking with practiced emotion. "My children ask why Aunt Aurora wants to destroy our family. I don't have answers. How do you explain hatred to innocent hearts?" Emma showed me the video over breakfast, her expression mixing disgust with reluctant admiration. "She's really good at this. Look at the comments." "She's weaponizing motherhood." I observed, noting how she always filmed with toys visible in the background, children's voices barely audible off camera. "Should we respond?" Emma asked. "Tell our side." "No," I decided. Let her perform. Every lie she posts becomes evidence of fraud when the truth comes out. But Madison's campaign intensified beyond social media. That afternoon, arriving for my shift at Children's Memorial, I found protesters outside the employee entrance. 5 women holding signs, "Aurora Mitchell destroys families," and "Nurses should heal, not hurt." "There she is," one shouted, pointing at me. "The woman trying to orphan 3 innocent children." I kept walking head high, but they followed, chanting about family values and sisterly cruelty. Security eventually dispersed them, but the damage was done. Several colleagues witnessed the scene, and whispers followed me through the pediatric ward. "Don't let it get to you," said Dr. Patricia Holbrook, my supervisor. "Anyone who knows you understands this is nonsense." But did they? I caught nurses glancing at me differently, heard conversations halt when I entered break rooms. Madison's poison was spreading through my professional life. That evening, local news picked up the story. Family feud turns legal sister accuses nurse of identity theft. The segment featured Madison crying prettily, holding Sophia while Aiden clutched her leg. She'd given them an exclusive painting herself as a devoted mother facing persecution. "I only wanted to provide for my children," she told the reporter, a young woman who nodded sympathetically. "Yes, I made mistakes with finances, but who hasn't struggled? My sister could have helped me fix things quietly. Instead, she chose destruction." They showed my photo, the one from my hospital ID, where I looked tired and stern. The contrast was deliberate, warm, maternal Madison versus cold, career-focused Aurora. The narrative wrote itself. "This is slander," Emma fumed, pacing our living room. "Can't we sue?" "Let Catherine handle it." I said, though, watching my reputation shredded on television tested my resolve. Madison's digging her own grave. But she had more ammunition. The next day, someone leaked my divorce records to a gossip blog. Nothing scandalous in the actual documents, but Madison's supporters spun gold from straw. Aurora, the homewrecker. Aurora, the unfit mother whose husband fled. Aurora, the bitter divorcee, destroying her married sister from jealousy. "The irony," Marcus said when he called to apologize for his part in our past. "I left because I was selfish, but they're painting you as the villain in our story too." The pressure mounted from unexpected directions. Our landlord called, concerned about the controversy surrounding his property. Neighbors who'd been friendly became distant. Even the grocery store clerk who'd known us for years seemed uncomfortable making eye contact. Then came the death threats. The first appeared in my work email, bypassing hospital filters through careful wording. "Nurses who hurt families sometimes have accidents. Watch your back." Security increased my escort to and from the parking garage. Police traced the email to a library computer. No cameras, no leads. But it was enough to rattle me. "We should stay with someone," Emma suggested after the second threat arrived via postal mail letters cut from magazines like a movie cliché. Uncle Daniel offered. "We're not running," I interrupted. "That's what Madison wants. Us cowering, hiding, giving up." But the campaign escalated. Madison discovered TikTok, creating viral videos of her children's tears. She coached them carefully, never quite saying lies, but implying volumes. "I miss Aunt Rory," Sophia said to the camera, clutching a teddy bear. "Why doesn't she love us anymore?" "She loves you," Madison's voice replied softly. "She's just confused right now. Sometimes adults make bad choices." 30 million views in 2 days, comments demanding justice for those poor babies. Influencers picking up the story, adding their outrage to the chorus. At the hospital, administration called me in. "We support you," Dr. Holbrook assured me, but her expression suggested limits. However, the publicity is affecting the unit. Parents are requesting different nurses. The protests are disrupting patient care. "Are you suspending me?" I asked directly. "Voluntary leave," she suggested carefully, "until the legal matters resolve. With pay, of course. We value your years of service." I wanted to fight to point out the injustice of punishing the victim, but sick children didn't need their care disrupted by Madison's circus. I accepted the leave, adding career damage to Madison's tally of destruction. Emma faced her own battles at school. Screenshots of Madison's videos circulated among students, generating cruel rumors. Someone created an Instagram account called Toxic Aunt Tales, sharing memes about our situation. "I can handle it," Emma insisted, but I saw the strain in her eyes, heard her crying behind closed doors. Then Jake entered the fray, but not how Madison expected. He gave his own interview sitting in the home Madison had bought with fraud, surrounded by evidence of their false prosperity. My wife lied to me too. He said his quarterback shoulders slumped with defeat. I thought we'd earned this life. Instead, I've been an unknowing accomplice to massive theft. I'm cooperating fully with authorities because our children deserve better than a mother who builds their world on crime. Madison's response video showed true rage for the first time. My own husband, the father of my children, choosing my sister's lies over our family. This is what Aurora does. She poisons everyone against me. But Jake's defection created cracks in Madison's narrative. Comments began questioning inconsistencies. How did a retail worker afford that house? Why were the children in private school? Where did the money for her jewelry originate? Catherine Walsh seized the moment. We're filing defamation suits against Madison and several of her most vocal supporters who've crossed into illegal harassment. The death threats give us criminal ammunition too. Will it stop them? I asked, exhausted by the constant barrage. It'll make them think twice, Catherine assured me. Keyboard warriors rarely continue when facing actual consequences. Detective Morrison provided unexpected support, giving a brief statement to media about the extensive evidence in the case and warning against harassment of witnesses in an active federal investigation. The tide began turning. Legitimate journalists started investigating rather than just amplifying Madison's narrative. The financial discrepancies became impossible to ignore. Her victim persona cracked under scrutiny. Then Madison made a critical error. Desperate to maintain sympathy, she staged a suicide attempt, but she miscalculated the timing, posting a farewell video, then calling emergency services too quickly. Paramedics arrived to find her fully conscious, no pills ingested, theatrical setup obvious. The police report leaked within hours. Subject appeared to be creating content rather than experiencing mental health crisis. No medical intervention required. She overplayed her hand, Grace observed, monitoring the social media sentiment. People feel manipulated now. They hate that more than the original crime. Madison tried damage control, claiming the attempt was real, that police misunderstood. But security footage from her house subpoenaed for the divorce showed her carefully arranging props, checking camera angles, even doing multiple takes of her goodbye message. Jake filed for emergency custody using the staged attempt as evidence of instability. She prioritized viral content over our children's well-being, while his filing stated. They witnessed her preparing this deception, further damaging their ability to distinguish truth from lies. Madison's carefully constructed victim narrative collapsed. Supporters distanced themselves. The protesters disappeared from the hospital. Death threats stopped as their senders realized they'd been duped. But in her defeat, Madison grew more dangerous. "If I'm going down," she said in what became her final public video, "I'm taking everyone with me. Aurora, Mom, Dad, Jake, even precious Emma. You all created this. You all deserve what's coming." The threat was clear enough for police to upgrade her house arrest. An ankle monitor became full surveillance. Her internet access was restricted. The children were removed to Jake's temporary custody. Emma and I sat in our quiet apartment processing the sudden silence after weeks of chaos. "Is it over?" she asked. "The public part, maybe," I said. "But Madison still has to face trial. She'll have new strategies, new manipulations." "But no more audience," Emma noted with satisfaction. "No one to perform for except a jury who'll see evidence, not tears." The pressure campaign had failed, turned back on its creator. Madison learned too late that public sympathy was like fire warming when controlled, devastating when it turned. She'd lit the match herself, never expecting to be consumed by her own flames. As we prepared for bed, normalcy felt foreign after weeks under siege. Tomorrow I'd return to work, reputation battered but intact. Emma would face her classmates with evidence of her aunt's deception. We'd rebuild what Madison tried to destroy. "Mom," Emma said quietly, I know this is awful, but watching Madison's campaign fail was kind of satisfying. Does that make me a bad person? No, I assured her. It makes you human. There's no virtue in being endlessly victimized. Sometimes watching a manipulator face consequences is the only justice we get. Madison had deployed every weapon in her arsenal: tears, children public sympathy, even death threats by proxy. But truth has a peculiar resilience. It bends under assault, but rarely breaks. And when the attack ends, truth springs back, often striking the attacker with accumulated force. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, but tonight, for the first time in weeks, we slept without checking locks, without fearing what fresh assault morning would bring. Madison's war on truth had ended the only way it could, with truth winning and the liar exposed. The prosecutor would handle the legal consequences, but the court of public opinion had already rendered its verdict, and Madison, who'd sought that venue so desperately, would have to live with its judgment. Catherine Walsh's office felt different that morning. The defensive posture of previous weeks had transformed into strategic offense. She spread new documents across her conference table with the satisfaction of a general planning victory. Madison's staged suicide attempt was the gift we needed, she announced. Public sympathy evaporated overnight. Now we strike back. The countersuit paperwork was impressive defamation, intentional infliction of emotional distress, harassment, and more. Each charge supported by screenshots, video evidence, and witness statements from those who'd participated in Madison's campaign. We're also filing civil suits for the identity theft separately, Catherine explained. Criminal conviction is one thing, but civil judgments ensure financial restitution. Every asset in her name becomes recoverable. What assets? I asked. Everything she has was bought with stolen money. Exactly. Catherine smiled. The house, cars, jewelry, even the furniture, all purchased with fraudulent funds, all subject to seizure. Your sister will lose everything. Part of me felt the weight of that. Madison's children watching their possessions loaded into trucks, their rooms emptied, their lives stripped bare. But then I remembered Emma's college fund, my parents' retirement, 30 other victims Madison had destroyed without conscience. What about the GoFundMe? Emma asked, having joined us after school. Fraud charges, Catherine confirmed. Raising money under false pretenses is illegal. Those funds will be frozen, potentially distributed to victims. As we planned our legal response, my phone buzzed. Patricia Coleman, the investigative journalist Grace had mentioned weeks ago. She'd been quietly researching Madison's history, and her findings were explosive. Can we meet? Patricia asked. I've uncovered pattern behavior going back to high school. Your sister's been running cons since she was 16. We met at a quiet cafe downtown. Patricia, a woman in her 40s with sharp eyes and careful note-taking habits, had compiled a devastating portfolio. Your sister started with lunch money theft in sophomore year. She began showing yearbook photos, claimed kids gave her money for fundraisers that didn't exist, small amounts, but it established the pattern. Page after page revealed Madison's evolution from petty theft to sophisticated fraud. College roommates missing rent money, employers discovering register shortages during her shifts, a church youth group whose camping fund mysteriously vanished. No one pressed charges, Patricia explained. She was young, pretty, cried convincingly. People blamed themselves for misplacing money or miscounting. Classic manipulation tactics. This goes back 24 years. I calculated, stunned by the timeline. At least, Patricia confirmed. I'm writing a long-form piece about family fraud and how criminals exploit trust. Your sister is the perfect case study. Would you cooperate? I looked at Emma, who nodded firmly. Do it, she said. People need to know how these criminals operate. Maybe it'll save someone else. We spent 3 hours with Patricia providing context and documentation. Her article would be thorough, factual, and devastating to any remaining supporters Madison might have. Meanwhile, Jake's custody filing progressed rapidly. He'd hired an aggressive family lawyer who presented Madison's crimes as child endangerment. She involved minor children in fraudulent schemes, the filing read. taught them to lie to authorities, use them as props in manipulation campaigns, and expose them to criminal liability. Madison's response came through her lawyer, Vincent Crawley. She demanded supervised visitation, claiming Jake was poisoning the children against her. But the judge, reviewing evidence of her staged suicide attempt and public threats, denied even that. The respondent has demonstrated willingness to use her children for public manipulation, the ruling stated. Until psychiatric evaluation confirms fitness, no contact is permitted. Madison's isolation was complete. No children to use as shields, no public platform for performance, no family members still buying her lies, just an ankle monitor and mounting legal consequences. But she had one last card to play. Dr. Patricia Holbrook called me back to work early, her voice tense. "Aurora, we've received a complaint filed with the nursing board. Your sister is claiming professional misconduct, saying you accessed her medical records illegally." "That's absurd," I protested. "I've never looked at her records." "I know," Patricia assured me, "but we have to investigate. It's a serious accusation that could affect your license." Madison's final attack, trying to destroy my career permanently. Even facing decades in prison, she couldn't resist one more attempt at destruction. Catherine Walsh took this new threat seriously. She's trying to create leverage for plea bargaining. If she can threaten your nursing license, she might think you'll drop charges. "Can she succeed?" Emma asked, worry clear in her voice. "No," Catherine said firmly, "but we need to be proactive. I'm filing ethics complaints against her lawyer for facilitating false accusations, and we're adding malicious prosecution to our civil suits." We documented everything: my work schedules, computer access logs, witness statements from colleagues, confirming I'd never accessed Madison's information. The hospital's IT department ran forensic analysis, proving no improper record access. Within days, Madison's complaint was dismissed as baseless. But the investigation revealed something unexpected. Madison had accessed my medical records repeatedly using information stolen from my insurance cards. HIPAA violations, Catherine noted with satisfaction. Federal crime, add it to the pile. Patricia Coleman's article published that weekend. The sister who stole everything, a 20-year trail of family fraud, appeared in a major national magazine accompanied by documentation and victim interviews. The piece was surgical in its dissection of Madison's methods, how she identified targets, exploited trust, escalated gradually. Experts in criminal psychology provided analysis of her sociopathic tendencies. Victims shared their stories, many speaking publicly for the first time. She destroyed my credit before I turned 21, one former roommate revealed, but I was too embarrassed to report it. Who admits their friends stole from them? The article's impact was immediate. Madison's remaining supporters vanished. Past victims contacted authorities, adding their cases to the growing pile. Law enforcement in 3 states opened investigations based on Patricia's research. But the most powerful section was Emma's contribution. My daughter had written a sidebar about growing up with a criminal aunt, watching her mother work exhausting shifts while Madison flaunted stolen wealth. "She gave me expensive gifts," Emma wrote, "but they were bought with my future. Every designer purse represented textbooks I couldn't afford. Every piece of jewelry was cast from my mother's exhaustion. I'm selling them all and donating the proceeds to identity theft victims. I want nothing built on lies." Madison's lawyer requested an emergency meeting. Vincent Crawley, stripped of his usual arrogance, looked defeated. "My client wishes to negotiate a plea agreement," he said carefully. "Full confession in exchange for reduced sentencing." "No deals," Catherine responded immediately. "She goes to trial, faces every charge, serves maximum time." "Be reasonable," Crawley pressed. "She's pregnant, has young children." "Whose lives she destroyed," I interrupted. "Madison made her choices. Now she faces consequences." Crawley left frustrated, but Madison wasn't done. That night, violating her internet restrictions, she managed one final social media post through a contraband phone. "My family celebrates while I suffer. Remember this face, Aurora Mitchell. Remember what you've done. Prison won't hold me forever, and I have nothing but time to plan. The threat was explicit enough for immediate action. Police raided her house arrest, finding the hidden phone and evidence she'd been planning escape despite the ankle monitor. Her house arrest was revoked, and Madison went directly to county jail to await trial. The photos of her arrest showed no tears, no performance, just cold fury as officers led her away in handcuffs, her stolen home dark behind her. The woman who'd played victim so convincingly finally looked like what she was, a criminal facing justice. "It's really over," Emma said as we watched the news coverage. "She can't hurt anyone else." "The criminal part is over," I corrected. "Now comes healing for us, for her children, for everyone she damaged." Jake brought Aiden and Sophia to visit us that weekend. The children, confused and hurting, needed to understand their aunt wasn't the enemy their mother had painted. "Your mom is sick," I explained carefully. "Not physically, but in how she thinks about right and wrong. She loves you, but she made bad choices that hurt people." "Will she come back?" Sophia asked, clutching the teddy bear from Madison's viral videos. "Someday," I said honestly, "but not for a long time. Until then, you have Dad and grandparents and us. You're not alone." The investigation's final tally was staggering: 43 identified victims over 24 years. Total theft exceeding $2 million. Federal and state charges numbering in the hundreds. Madison faced the possibility of dying in prison. But there was restitution too. Assets seized from the house sale would repay some victims. The frozen offshore accounts once released would help others. Insurance would cover portions of the loss. Not everything could be recovered, but justice would try. Emma's college fund remained depleted, but her story had touched strangers. A GoFundMe organized by Patricia Coleman's readers raised $30,000 for her education. Offers of scholarships poured in from schools impressed by her strength and advocacy. "See," I told her as acceptance letters arrived, "Madison couldn't steal your future. She just changed its path." My parents, broken but rebuilding, sold their compromised house to downsize. The proceeds would sustain them modestly through retirement. Not the golden years they'd planned, but enough to survive with dignity. As for me, I returned to work with full support from administration. The children in my ward didn't care about viral videos or family drama. They needed a nurse who showed up, who cared, who helped them heal. I could still be that person despite Madison's attempts to destroy me. The night before Madison's trial was scheduled to begin, I sat with Emma looking through old photo albums. Pictures of two sisters growing up together, birthday parties and Christmas mornings, first days of school and family vacations. Somewhere in those images, Madison had been real. The laughing girl who'd held my hand during thunderstorms had existed before transforming into the woman who'd tried to destroy me. "Do you miss her?" Emma asked. "The sister she used to be?" "Every day," I admitted, "but I can't save someone who doesn't want saving. I can only protect others from what she became." Madison had launched her war with manipulation, and tears wielded public sympathy like a weapon sent flying monkeys to attack on her behalf. But truth had fought back with evidence and exposure, with journalism and justice, with the simple power of facts over fiction. Tomorrow, a jury would begin hearing those facts. Madison would sit in defendant's chair she'd earned through decades of choices. No amount of tears would wash away forged signatures. No performance would eclipse documented theft. The counterattack was complete. Madison's weapons had been turned against her, her strategies exposed and dismantled. All that remained was watching justice take its course, and beginning the long work of rebuilding what one sister's greed had tried to destroy. The afternoon sun cast long shadows through the stained glass windows of St. Mary's Episcopal Church, the same sanctuary where Madison and I had been baptized, confirmed, and where we'd mourned our grandmother together 5 years ago. Today we gathered for the annual memorial service, but the family that filled the pews bore little resemblance to the united front of years past. I sat with Emma in our usual spot, third row left, watching relatives file in with the awkwardness of people choosing sides in a civil war. Aunt Margaret, our father's eldest sister and unofficial family matriarch at 78, commanded the front row with the authority of someone who'd buried a husband and 2 children, yet remained unbroken. Madison arrived flanked by 2 correctional officers, her ankle monitor visible beneath the hem of a modest black dress that bore no resemblance to her former designer wardrobe. The Orange County Jail jumpsuit had been replaced for the occasion, but shackles remained on her wrists. Vincent Crawley followed, looking uncomfortable in the sacred space. The defendant has the right to attend family religious services, he'd argued to the judge, and surprisingly won. But the victory felt hollow as Madison sat isolated, even her children absent by court order. The whispers started immediately. Cousin Patricia, who'd supported me throughout, sat pointedly on our side, but Uncle Jeffrey and his family filled the pews behind Madison, their loyalty purchased by years of small loans and favors she'd provided with stolen funds. The middle section held the undecided, though still processing Patricia Coleman's devastating article. Father Michael, who'd known our family for 3 decades, began the service with careful neutrality, but tension crackled through the sanctuary like electricity before a storm. When he called for us to share memories of Grandma Eleanor, the service took an unexpected turn. Aunt Margaret stood first, her cane steady against the marble floor. Eleanor was my best friend for 50 years. She valued truth above all else. She'd be heartbroken to see what's become of this family. Her eyes found Madison directly. She'd be especially devastated to know her granddaughter stole from her while she lay dying. "How dare you?" Madison shot up, officers restraining her. "I took care of Grandma when none of you visited. Where were you during her final months?" "Working," Margaret replied coolly, "because some of us earn our money honestly." The sanctuary erupted. Uncle Jeffrey stood to defend Madison, claiming the charges were exaggerated. Cousin Patricia countered with her own story of Madison borrowing $5,000 for a fake emergency. Other relatives chose sides, years of buried resentment surfacing. Enough. My father's principal voice cut through the chaos. He stood slowly, the stroke's effects still visible in his careful movements. "We're in God's house, arguing over a woman who taught us better." "Then tell them the truth, Dad," Madison challenged. "Tell them how you and Mom always favored Aurora, how you gave her opportunities you denied me." "We gave you identical opportunities," Mom said quietly from beside Dad. "You squandered yours. That's not favoritism, Madison. That's consequence." Madison laughed bitterly. "Identical Aurora got private tutoring for her nursing entrance exams. What did I get told to marry Jake and make the best of it? You'd already dropped out of 3 colleges. I interjected, my own anger rising. "They paid for each attempt. How many chances did you deserve?" "As many as you got." Madison's mask slipped completely. But perfect Aurora never needed second chances, did she, straight as full scholarship model daughter. "Do you know what it's like growing up in that shadow?" "So, you decided to steal my light." I stood to face her. "Destroy my credit, take my daughter's future, ruin our parents. That was your solution to childhood jealousy." "I decided to level the playing field," Madison snarled, "and I'd do it again." The confession echoed through the sanctuary. Even her supporters looked shaken by the venom in her voice. Vincent Crawley whispered urgently in her ear, but the damage was done. Father Michael attempted to restore order, but Aunt Margaret wasn't finished. She pulled out a manila envelope, hands trembling with age and anger. "I hired my own investigator," she announced, "because I couldn't believe Eleanor's granddaughter capable of such evil, but the evidence is worse than the accusations." She scattered photographs across the pew. Madison at the casino gambling with Eleanor's money while claiming it went to hospice care. Madison buying jewelry the day after Eleanor's account was drained. Madison celebrating at an expensive restaurant while we planned the funeral. Each image was a dagger. Madison's defense crumbled as relatives saw proof of her callousness. She'd been partying on stolen funds while we mourned the woman she'd robbed. "That's not all." Daniel spoke up suddenly, my brother's voice heavy with guilt. "I need to confess something too." The sanctuary fell silent. Daniel's successful real estate agent and golden child had his own secrets to reveal. "Madison's been blackmailing me for 2 years. He admitted. She knew I'd been inflating property values for better commissions, threatened to report me unless I helped with her schemes. I'm not proud of what I've done, but I won't protect her anymore." The revelation sent fresh shockwaves through the family. Madison's reach extended further than anyone imagined. She'd corrupted our brother, turned him into an unwitting accomplice through extortion. "You sanctimonious hypocrites," Madison spat. "Daniel's been committing real estate fraud for years. Dad took bribes to change grades when he was principal. Mom had an affair with the dental hygienist in '95. Aurora had an abortion in college that she never told Marcus about. You all have secrets. You're all liars." The accusations flew like shrapnel, some clearly fabricated, others touching nerves that suggested grains of truth. But her desperation to wound everyone revealed the depths of her moral bankruptcy. "The difference," I said clearly, "is that our mistakes didn't destroy other people's lives. We didn't build our existence on theft and lies." "Didn't you—" Madison turned on me with predator's eyes. "What about Emma's father? Does she know why Marcus really left? Does she know about the night you—" "Stop," Marcus's voice commanded from the back of the church. No one had seen him enter. "Madison, you're about to lie about something I was present for. I left because I was selfish and immature. Aurora never gave me reason. Don't weaponize my failures against her." His unexpected defense silenced Madison momentarily. Emma looked at her father with surprise and something like gratitude. Even now, years after abandoning us, he wouldn't let Madison rewrite history. "None of this matters," Aunt Margaret declared. "Eleanor is dead. Madison stole from her, and dozens of others. The law will handle the rest. But this family—" She gestured around the sanctuary. "This family died the day we started enabling a criminal instead of loving a sister." She walked out cane, clicking against stone with finality. Others followed, choosing sides with their feet. Madison's supporters dwindled to Uncle Jeffrey, and a few others, mostly those who'd benefited from her stolen largesse. "I hope you're happy," Madison said to me as officers prepared to return her to custody. "You've destroyed everything Grandma Eleanor built. This family will never recover." "You destroyed it," I replied quietly. "With every forged signature, every stolen dollar, every manipulative lie. I just stopped letting you hide behind family loyalty." Father Michael concluded the service with a prayer for healing that felt hollow. How could words bridge chasms carved by decades of deception? How could faith restore trust betrayed so thoroughly? Outside, the family clustered in angry knots. Accusations flew about who knew what when who'd enabled Madison who'd failed to act. The memorial service meant to honor Eleanor had become the funeral for family unity. Emma and I stood apart watching the dissolution. My parents sat in their car, Mom crying while Dad stared straight ahead. Daniel talked frantically with his lawyer on his phone, realizing Madison's blackmail admission had exposed his own crimes. Relatives who'd shared holidays for 50 years now couldn't share the same parking lot. "This is what she wanted," Emma observed. "If she couldn't have the family's love, she'd ensure no one did." The insight was heartbreaking in its accuracy. Madison's final act of destruction ensuring that even behind bars, her poison would continue spreading through family bonds. Patricia approached us carefully. "I'm sorry it came to this," she said. "But maybe honesty, even painful honesty, is better than living lies." "Maybe," I agreed, though. Watching my family shatter made the philosophy hard to embrace. As we drove home, Emma asked the question I'd been dreading. "Are we going to be okay? Our family—" "We'll be different," I admitted. "Smaller, maybe, but the relatives who truly matter will find their way back. The others were only held by Madison's manipulation anyway. That evening, Aunt Margaret called. "I'm changing my will," she announced. "Madison's children will need support with their mother in prison, but I won't have their inheritance filtered through criminals. I'm establishing a trust with you as executor. Will you accept?" The responsibility felt heavy but necessary. "I will." "Good. Eleanor would approve. She always said you had steel beneath the kindness. Madison mistook that kindness for weakness, her greatest error." As night fell, I reflected on the day's devastation. Madison had arrived at the memorial in shackles, but managed to chain the entire family to her chaos. Her accusations, whether true or fabricated, had planted seeds of doubt that would grow for years. But there was liberation in the destruction too. Secrets exposed couldn't be weaponized. Enablers revealed couldn't continue their protection. The family that emerged from Madison's trial by fire would be scarred but honest. Daniel called near midnight. "I'm turning myself in tomorrow," he said quietly. "Coming clean about the real estate fraud. Madison's blackmail defense might minimize my sentence." "I'm proud of you," I told my brother, meaning it. "Truth is the only way forward." "Think the family will survive?" he asked. "Parts of it," I said. "The parts worth saving. Madison had shattered our family like a brick through stained glass, but sometimes broken pieces, when reassembled, create new patterns, different from the original, perhaps even stronger for having been tested. Tomorrow would bring more revelations, more choosing of sides, more fractures in foundations we'd thought solid. But tonight Emma and I sat together in our small apartment, grateful for the simple truth between us. Madison had stolen money, identities, and futures, but she'd failed to steal the most important thing, the integrity that would see us through her wreckage. The family was fractured, possibly beyond repair, but from the rubble, something new could grow. Something built on truth rather than enabling on accountability, rather than excuses. The memorial service had become a funeral for illusions. Now came the harder task of building reality from the ashes. The federal courthouse in downtown stood like a fortress of justice, its marble columns reflecting the morning sun as Catherine Walsh and I climbed the steps for our final pre-trial meeting with the prosecutor. Assistant U.S. Attorney Amanda Chen had a reputation for being thorough, methodical, and absolutely ruthless when it came to financial crimes. Ms. Mitchell. She greeted us in her office walls lined with law books and commendations. "I want you to understand what's coming. Your sister's attorney will try to destroy you on the stand. Are you prepared for that?" I sat straighter in the leather chair, Emma beside me, for moral support. "I'm prepared for the truth." "The truth is often the first casualty in criminal defense," Amanda warned. "Vincent Crawley specializes in creating reasonable doubt through character assassination. He'll paint you as jealous, vindictive, mentally unstable. Every mistake you've ever made will be weaponized." Catherine had warned me, but hearing it from the prosecutor made it real. "What kind of mistakes?" Amanda opened a thick folder. "He subpoenaed your therapy records from after the divorce. Any mental health treatment becomes fair game. He's hired investigators to interview your ex's co-workers, anyone who might have a grudge. He's even looking into your college years, trying to find evidence of wild behavior or poor judgment." "I was a nursing student who worked 2 jobs," I protested. "My idea of wild was staying up past midnight to study." "Doesn't matter," Amanda said flatly. "He'll spin studying as obsessive behavior. Your work ethic becomes evidence of jealousy toward Madison's easier life. Every strength becomes a weakness in Crawley's hands." Emma leaned forward. "What about Madison's history? 24 years of fraud." "We'll present it all," Amanda assured her. "But Crawley will claim she's mentally ill. Postpartum depression, bipolar disorder, whatever sells sympathy. He's got 3 psychiatrists ready to testify that she's not responsible for her actions." "That's ridiculous," I said. "She planned these crimes meticulously." "Which we'll prove," Amanda agreed. "But juries can be swayed by tears and pregnancy. Madison knows how to perform. We need to be prepared for Academy Award level manipulation." We spent 4 hours reviewing my testimony, Amanda grilling me like Crawley would. Every answer was dissected, every emotion analyzed. By the end, I felt flayed raw but ready. Remember, Amanda concluded, stay calm, stick to facts, don't let him bait you into anger. Madison's conviction depends on you being the credible witness. That evening, Grace came over to help prepare visual aids for the prosecution, charts showing money flow timelines of theft victim impact statements. The evidence was overwhelming, but would it be enough against Madison's tears? I've testified in dozens of fraud cases, Grace assured me. Documentation doesn't lie. Juries understand numbers even when they're confused by emotion. Daniel arrived unexpectedly looking haggard. His confession to authorities about the real estate fraud had cost him his license and reputation, but he'd avoided prison by cooperating fully. I need to tell you something before trial, he said nervously. Crawley approached me, offered me a deal to testify that you knew about Madison's schemes. What? Emma jumped up outraged. I told him to go to hell, Daniel continued quickly. But he'll probably claim I'm lying to protect you now. I wanted you to know to be prepared. Why warn me? I asked, studying my brother. You could have stayed quiet. Because I'm done with secrets, Daniel said simply. Madison corrupted me with blackmail, but I let her. I was weak, greedy, willing to bend rules. But I won't lie in court. Not for her, not for anyone. His warning proved valuable. The next day, Crawley filed a motion claiming I was the real mastermind, using Madison as a scapegoat. The theory was laughable but required response. Amanda crafted a devastating rebuttal using Madison's own words from jail calls where she'd bragged about her schemes to other inmates. Madison's mental health evaluation came back and Crawley immediately moved to seal it. But Amanda got a copy through discovery. The court-appointed psychiatrist's conclusion was damning. The subject displays antisocial personality disorder with narcissistic features, but is fully cognizant of right and wrong. Her criminal behavior appears calculated rather than compulsive. So much for the insanity defense, Catherine observed with satisfaction. But Madison had one more card to play. A week before trial, she claimed to be suffering pregnancy complications from stress. Hospitalized under guard, she gave interviews from her bed about the cruel system, destroying an expectant mother. She's dilated to 2 centimeters, her doctor told reporters. The stress of prosecution could trigger premature labor. Amanda was furious. She's manipulating her own pregnancy for sympathy. The woman has no boundaries. But the judge concerned about liability postponed the trial by 2 weeks. Madison used every day to generate publicity about her high-risk condition, posting ultrasound photos and naming the baby Hope. Hope, Emma said disgustedly. She's naming her baby Hope while facing 30 years for destroying hope in dozens of lives. The irony wasn't lost on anyone, but it played well in selective media. Some outlets ran sympathetic pieces about the pregnant woman facing decades away from her baby. They conveniently ignored her victims or the children already removed from her custody. Jake brought Aiden and Sophia to visit us during the delay. The children were in therapy, slowly understanding their mother's crimes, but still loving her despite everything. Will Mommy's new baby go to jail too? Sophia asked innocently. No, sweetheart, I explained gently. The baby will live with someone safe while Mommy gets help. Why can't the baby live with us? Aiden wanted to know. Jake and I exchanged glances. How to explain that their mother's crimes had made their family structure impossible, that their new sibling would likely be adopted by strangers. As trial preparation intensified, more victims emerged from Madison's past. The prosecutor added 3 new counts based on elderly neighbors Madison had defrauded in her 20s. Each story followed the same pattern. Trust gained sympathy, evoked finances destroyed. She's a serial predator, Amanda said during our final prep session. The pregnancy doesn't change that. Don't let her condition soften your testimony. But Madison's manipulation continued from her hospital bed. She posted videos of herself crying over baby clothes, claiming she was knitting blankets she'd never get to use. The comment sections filled with outrage at the heartless system. Then Marcus did something unexpected. He gave an interview to Patricia Coleman following up on her original article. "Madison Mitchell is using pregnancy like a weapon," he stated bluntly. "As someone who abandoned my own child, I recognize manipulation. She's not worried about her baby. She's worried about prison. The tears are calculated, the timing deliberate. Don't fall for it." His words carried weight precisely because of his own failures. Who better to recognize parental manipulation than someone who'd committed it himself? Vincent Crawley requested another meeting, this time offering a plea deal. Madison would plead guilty to reduce charges in exchange for 10 years instead of 30. "No deal," I said before Amanda could speak. "She serves the full time." "That's not your decision," Crawley snapped. "But my testimony is," I replied, "and I'll make sure the jury knows every single victim, every stolen dollar, every destroyed life. Your client made her choices. Now she faces consequences." Madison went into labor the night before jury selection. The timing felt too convenient, but babies follow their own schedules. She delivered a healthy girl, immediately posting photos from the delivery room. "Meet Hope Eleanor Mitchell." Her caption read, "Born into a world that wants to punish her mother for trying to provide. Pray she knows love despite the cruelty surrounding her arrival. Eleanor. She'd named the baby after the grandmother she'd robbed while dying. The audacity took my breath away." "She's trying to humanize herself," Amanda explained. "Make the jury see a new mother instead of a career criminal. We counter with facts, not emotion." The final witness list was extensive. 43 victims ready to testify, financial experts to explain the sophisticated nature of the fraud, psychologists to counter the mental illness defense, and me, the star witness whose testimony would tie it all together. "Are you ready?" Catherine asked the night before trial. I thought about Madison holding baby Hope, using an innocent child as a prop in her continued manipulation, about my parents facing poverty, about Emma's stolen college fund, about 30 other people whose lives she'd casually destroyed for designer handbags and granite countertops. "I'm ready," I said with certainty. The courthouse media circus had grown. Protesters with "Justice for Madison" signs faced off against victim advocates. Camera crews lined up for the trial of the century, sister versus sister, in a battle over identity, money, and betrayal. Emma would attend every day, taking notes for the book she'd decided to write about our experience. "Someone needs to document the truth," she'd said, "before Hollywood turns it into entertainment." As I laid out my clothes for the first day of testimony, I thought about the journey from that first foreclosure notice to tomorrow's opening statements. Madison had stolen my identity, but I'd found my voice. She'd taken my money, but I'd discovered my strength. She'd tried to destroy my life, but had only revealed its foundation. Tomorrow, 12 strangers would begin hearing evidence in United States versus Madison Mitchell. But the real verdict had already been rendered in the court of consequences. Every forged signature had been a choice. Every stolen dollar, a decision. Every victim, a deliberate selection. Madison could manipulate public opinion, generate sympathy, even use her newborn as a shield. But she couldn't change the fundamental truth: she was a criminal who'd preyed on those who loved her most. The evidence was prepared, the witnesses ready, the truth documented in thousands of pages. Now all that remained was presenting it to 12 people who would decide if accountability still mattered in a world where tears could drown out truth. The federal courtroom was packed beyond capacity, with media relegated to an overflow room with closed-circuit monitors. I sat in the witness preparation room, hands steady despite the magnitude of what lay ahead. Catherine Walsh adjusted my blazer one final time. "Remember," she said quietly, "you're not on trial. Madison is. Answer only what's asked. Stay calm and let the truth speak." The bailiff called my name. Walking to the witness stand felt like crossing a battlefield, Madison's eyes tracking my every step. She sat at the defense table in a conservative gray dress, baby weight still visible, playing the part of struggling new mother rather than career criminal. After being sworn in, prosecutor Amanda Chen approached with quiet authority. Ms. Mitchell, please tell the jury when you first discovered your identity had been stolen. I recounted the foreclosure notice, my voice gaining strength as I spoke. The jury of 7 women and 5 men listened intently, some taking notes. Madison's expression remained carefully neutral, but her hands clenched in her lap. Did you give your sister permission to use your identity? Amanda asked. Never, not for any purpose. Did you know she had been intercepting your mail? Not until the bank showed me 14 months of documents I'd never seen. Amanda methodically walked through each piece of evidence. Forged signatures displayed on screens, bank surveillance footage of Madison impersonating me, the paper trail of destruction spanning years. Then came Vincent Crawley's cross-examination. Ms. Mitchell, he began with theatrical concern. Isn't it true you've been in therapy since your divorce? Yes, processing abandonment and single parenthood seemed healthy. And during these therapy sessions, did you discuss feelings of resentment toward your sister's seemingly easier life? I discussed many things with my therapist, I replied evenly, none of which justified identity theft. Crawley's strategy became clear immediately. Paint me as unstable, jealous, vindictive. He questioned my work schedule, implying neglect of Emma. He highlighted every loan I'd given Madison, suggesting complicity. He even brought up college parties from 20 years ago. So, you admit to using a fake ID to enter bars while underage, he pressed. When I was 19, yes, I acknowledged. Like many college students in 2003. So, you understand using false identification for personal benefit. Amanda objected before I could answer. Relevance, Your Honor. Sustained, Judge Harrison ruled. Mr. Crawley 19th century college behavior has no bearing on 21st century federal fraud. But Crawley had made his point. If I'd bent rules once, why not again? The jury might wonder what else I was capable of. Madison took the stand on day 3 and her performance was masterful. Tears fell at precisely the right moments. Her voice broke, describing her children's needs. She cradled photos of baby Hope while testifying the grieving mother separated from her newborn. I never meant to hurt Aurora, she sobbed. I was desperate postpartum, not thinking clearly. Jake's gambling had destroyed us and I just needed temporary help. But you continued the fraud for over 3 years, Amanda pointed out on cross. I kept thinking I could fix it. Madison's tears increased. Every month I promised myself I'd come clean, pay it back. But then another crisis would hit. The children needed medical care. Jake would lose another job. I was drowning. She painted herself as a victim of circumstances driven to desperation by an unsupportive family and absent husband. When asked about the grandmother's stolen funds, she claimed confusion from grief. I thought I was managing her estate properly. Maybe I made mistakes, but I loved Grandma Eleanor. I held her hand when she died while Aurora was working. The implication stung. I'd been saving lives in the pediatric ward while Madison robbed our dying grandmother, but she'd spun it as abandonment. Jake's testimony demolished her narrative. Looking haggard but determined, he laid out the truth about their finances. I haven't gambled since 2020, he stated firmly. Madison created that story to explain our sudden wealth. I thought her parents were helping us. Instead, she was stealing from everyone. Mr. Mitchell, Crawley attacked immediately. Isn't it true you're seeking sole custody of the children? Yes. So you have motive to lie about their mother. I have motive to protect them from a criminal, Jake shot back. Madison taught our 6-year-old to lie to her teacher about our address. She involved children in fraud. What kind of father would I be if I didn't fight for custody? The parade of victims was devastating. Each one told their story of trust betrayed. The elderly neighbor who'd lost her savings. The college roommate still rebuilding credit 2 decades later. Employers who'd given Madison chances only to discover embezzlement. But the most powerful testimony came from Grace Chen. Using her forensic accounting expertise, she walked the jury through the money trail with surgical precision. This wasn't desperation. Grace explained, displaying charts showing spending patterns. This was systematic exploitation. The defendant didn't steal for formula and diapers. She stole for designer handbags, jewelry, and luxury vacations. Objection, Crawley called. The witness is speculating about motive. I'm reporting documented purchases, Grace responded coolly. Exhibit 47 shows a $9,000 shopping spree at Nordstrom the same day the defendant claimed she couldn't afford her son's asthma medication. The evidence was damning. For every sob story Madison had crafted, Grace had receipts showing the truth. Lavish dinners while claiming poverty, spa treatments during supposed family crises, a lifestyle funded entirely by others' misery. Madison's mask slipped during Grace's testimony. The tears dried up, replaced by cold calculation as she whispered frantically to Crawley. But the numbers didn't lie, and everyone could see it. Character witnesses provided context both sides could use. Teachers described Madison as manipulative even in high school, but others painted her as a devoted mother, corrupted by circumstances. The truth, as always, lay somewhere between. On day 7, Madison made a fatal error. Against Crawley's advice, she demanded to testify again to clarify previous statements. The judge allowed it, and Madison took the stand with renewed confidence. I want to address the shopping accusations, she began. Yes, I bought nice things, but they were investments. Designer items hold value. I was building assets for my children's future. Assets purchased with stolen money, Amanda clarified. Borrowed money, Madison corrected. I always intended to repay everyone. Then why move funds offshore? Amanda pressed. Why purchase fake passports? Madison froze. This evidence hadn't been presented yet. Amanda had set a trap and Madison walked right in. I don't know what you mean, Madison stammered. Really? Amanda produced documents. These wire transfer records show systematic movement of stolen funds to Caribbean banks. These passport applications and false names for you and your children were found in your storage unit. The courtroom buzzed. Even Crawley looked shocked. Madison had been planning to flee with the children, abandoning Jake and taking whatever money remained. The devoted mother mask shattered completely. I was protecting my babies. Madison tried to recover. If Aurora succeeded in her vendetta, I needed options. Options to kidnap your children internationally. Amanda's voice was sharp. Options to continue your crime spree in countries without extradition. Objection, Crawley shouted, but the damage was done. Judge Harrison called a recess. In the hallway, Madison's few remaining supporters looked shaken. The image of a desperate mother had been replaced by that of a calculating criminal planning international flight. The defense's psychiatric witnesses tried to salvage Madison's image, testifying about postpartum depression and personality disorders. But on cross-examination, each admitted Madison knew right from wrong, understood consequences, and chose to continue anyway. My second round of testimony focused on impact. Emma sat in the gallery as I described working double shifts to replace stolen college funds, how my daughter had sold every gift from her aunt, unable to keep items bought with blood money. The dreams deferred, the trust destroyed, the family shattered. Has your sister shown remorse? Amanda asked. Only for being caught, I replied honestly. Every tear has been calculated for effect. Crawley's final cross was vicious. He accused me of jealousy, of manufacturing evidence, of destroying Madison out of spite. But I remained calm, answering each attack with simple truth. Mr. Crawley, I said during a particularly nasty implication, I don't need to manufacture anything. Your client documented her own crimes extensively. I just reported them. Closing arguments took most of day 9. Amanda methodically laid out 3 years of systematic fraud, dozens of victims, millions in stolen funds. She showed the jury Madison's own social media posts bragging about her lifestyle while claiming poverty. The defendant wants you to see a desperate mother, Amanda concluded. But desperation doesn't require designer handbags. Poverty doesn't fund luxury vacations. Mental illness doesn't explain offshore accounts and fake passports. Madison Mitchell is a career criminal who happened to give birth. Don't let reproduction excuse robbery. Crawley's closing was emotional, focusing on Madison's children, her struggles, the new baby who needed her mother. He painted me as the real villain, a jealous sister who chose prosecution over compassion. Aurora Mitchell could have helped her sister, he pleaded. Instead, she chose vengeance. Now 3 innocent children face growing up without their mother. Where's the justice in that? But the jury had seen the evidence. 24 years of theft couldn't be washed away by tears or baby photos. Madison had choices at every turn and consistently chose crime. During jury deliberation, Madison cornered me in the courthouse bathroom. "You've killed me," she hissed, her careful persona completely gone. "I hope you're happy. My children will hate you forever." "Your children will grow up with honest role models," I replied. "That's more than you offered them." "When I get out," Madison's voice dropped to a whisper, "I'm coming for you, for Emma, for everyone who betrayed me. Prison won't change that." Security intervened before she could say more, but the threat lingered. Even facing decades behind bars, Madison couldn't stop manipulating, threatening, scheming. It was who she was at the core. The jury returned after 6 hours. As the 4 women stood, Madison gripped the defense table, knuckles white. For the first time since this began, she looked genuinely afraid. On count 1, conspiracy to commit wire fraud, we find the defendant guilty. The litany continued through all 45 federal counts, guilty on every single charge. Madison swayed but didn't fall, her attorney steadying her. In the gallery, some wept while others nodded with grim satisfaction. Justice had spoken, not through tears or manipulation or performance, but through 12 citizens examining evidence and finding truth. Madison turned to look at me as court officers approached with shackles. The hatred in her eyes burned pure and undiluted, but beneath it, I saw something else, the recognition that her game was finally over. No more masks to wear, no more sympathy to exploit, no more identities to steal. Just a number in the federal system and decades to consider the choices that brought her there. The jury deliberation stretched into its 2nd day, each hour feeling like a lifetime. I sat with Emma in the courthouse cafeteria, pushing food around our plates without appetite. Catherine Walsh checked her phone, constantly waiting for the call that would end this chapter of our lives. "What if they acquit her?" Emma asked quietly, voicing the fear I'd been suppressing. "They won't," I said with more confidence than I felt. "The evidence is overwhelming." But we'd all seen trials where obvious guilt met unexpected verdicts, where tears trumped truth and performance eclipsed proof. Madison had woven her web of sympathy, so carefully portrayed herself as the victim so convincingly. What if 12 strangers fell for the same manipulation that had fooled our family for years? At 2:15 p.m., Catherine's phone buzzed. "They're back." The walk to the courtroom felt endless. Madison sat at the defense table, having changed into a demure pink dress that emphasized her recent pregnancy. Baby Hope was notably absent, being cared for by foster parents, while her mother's fate was decided. Judge Harrison called for order as the jury filed in. None of them looked at Madison, which Catherine said was a good sign. The forewoman, a middle-aged teacher named Sandra, stood with the verdict forms. "Has the jury reached a unanimous verdict?" Judge Harrison asked. "We have your honor." My heart hammered as the judge reviewed the forms, his expression revealing nothing. Madison gripped Vincent Crawley's arm, her carefully applied makeup already starting to crack under stress. "On count 1, conspiracy to commit wire fraud, how do you find guilty?" The word rang through the courtroom like a bell. Madison's sharp intake of breath was audible even from the gallery. "On count 2, aggravated identity theft, how do you find guilty?" "On count 3, mail fraud, how do you find guilty?" The litany continued through all 45 federal counts. Guilty, Guilty, guilty. Each verdict another nail in the coffin of Madison's charade. By count 20, she was sobbing genuine tears for the first time since her arrest. On count 37, money laundering. How do you find? Guilty. On count 38, tax evasion. How do you find? Guilty. Emma grabbed my hand as we listened to Madison's crimes cataloged and confirmed. 24 years of theft validated by 12 strangers who'd seen through her performance to the criminal beneath. On count 45, conspiracy to commit international kidnapping. How do you find? Guilty. The final verdict hung in the air like Judgment Day. Madison collapsed against her attorney, wailing with the abandon of someone who'd finally run out of manipulations. 45 counts guilty on all charges. The federal sentencing guidelines would demand decades. The jury is dismissed with the court's thanks, Judge Harrison announced. Sentencing is scheduled for 6 weeks from today. The defendant will remain in custody. Your Honor, Crawley stood desperately. My client has a newborn infant who needs her mother. We request continued release pending sentencing. Denied. Judge Harrison's voice was firm. The defendant has been convicted of planning international flight with fraudulent documents. She poses a clear flight risk. Court officers approached with shackles. Madison's sobs intensified, but she found energy for one last performance. Aurora, she cried out as they cuffed her. Please tell them I'm not a monster. You know me. You know I'm not evil. Every eye in the courtroom turned to me. This was Madison's final manipulation, forcing me to either condemn or comfort her publicly. Either response would haunt me. I stood slowly meeting my sister's desperate gaze. I knew Madison Mitchell once. She was my little sister who feared thunderstorms and loved butterfly gardens. That person died long before today. I addressed the stranger in shackles, are exactly what the jury determined. Guilty. Madison's face transformed from desperate hope to pure hatred. You'll regret this, she screamed as officers dragged her toward the holding cells. When I get out, you'll pay. Emma will pay. Everyone who betrayed me will pay. The threats echoed as the courtroom doors swung shut behind her. Judge Harrison noted them for the record, ensuring they'd be considered during sentencing. Madison had sealed her own fate with vindictive promises that proved rehabilitation was impossible. In the hallway, victims embraced and wept. 24 years of justice delayed had finally arrived. The elderly neighbor Madison had defrauded sobbed with relief, knowing restitution might restore some dignity to her final years. College roommates who'd blamed themselves for decades finally had validation. We did it, Grace said, pulling Emma and me into a fierce hug. She can't hurt anyone else. Jake approached hesitantly, his children nowhere in sight. Thank you, he said simply, for having the courage I lacked, for stopping her when I enabled her. What happens now? I asked. With the kids with hope. Aiden and Sophia are in therapy processing everything, Jake replied. Hope, the foster family, wants to adopt her. They're good people, stable home. It's better than visiting her mother in federal prison until she's 30. The math was staggering. Madison faced up to 30 years per count, though federal guidelines would see them served concurrently. Still, with 45 convictions, including aggravated identity theft, with mandatory minimums, she'd likely serve at least 25 years. Her children would be adults before she tasted freedom again. Marcus waited by the exit, having attended the verdict reading. You did the right thing, he offered awkwardly. Madison would have destroyed Emma's future too eventually. Criminals escalate until stopped. Since when are you an expert on doing the right thing? Emma challenged, but without her usual venom. Since I failed at it so spectacularly, Marcus admitted. Watching this trial, seeing what real abandonment looks like, Madison abandoned every moral principle for money. I just abandoned my family for selfishness. Both wrong, but she dressed hers up as love. It was the most insight Marcus had shown in years. Emma seemed to consider his words before turning away, not forgiving, but perhaps understanding a fraction better. The media descended as we left the courthouse. Cameras flashed and microphones thrust forward, everyone wanting the sisters' reaction to the verdict. Catherine had prepared a statement which I delivered with steady voice. Today, justice prevailed over manipulation. 24 years of victims finally have validation. My family can begin healing. Madison Mitchell made choices that destroyed lives and now faces appropriate consequences. We hope this case encourages other identity theft victims to come forward no matter who the perpetrator might be. Patricia Coleman waded past the media scrum, her follow-up article already forming. The foster family adopting hope. She said quietly, "They want to meet you, to understand Madison's family, medical history, psychological factors that might affect the baby." Another responsibility I hadn't anticipated. Madison's crimes would ripple through generations, affecting even the innocent baby born into chaos. Hope would grow up knowing her biological mother as a cautionary tale, a federal inmate who'd stolen millions and destroyed dozens of lives. That evening, we held a quiet celebration at home. No champagne or parties, just pizza, and the profound relief of verdict confirmed. Emma worked on her college application's future restored by justice. My parents called voices mixing sadness with gratitude that the ordeal was ending. "Will you visit her?" Mom asked tentatively. "In prison?" "No," I answered without hesitation. Madison made her choices. She can serve her time without my witness. "She's still our daughter," Mom whispered. "Then you visit her," I replied gently but firmly. "But don't ask me to pretend family bonds excuse 45 felony convictions. That enabling ends now." Daniel came by bringing cookies from the bakery that had hired him after he lost his real estate license. "Honest work," he said with a self-deprecating smile. "Minimum wage, but no one can accuse me of fraud over chocolate chips." We sat together, three survivors of Madison's hurricane, finding new equilibrium in truth's aftermath. Daniel had lost his career but found integrity. Emma had lost her college fund but gained resilience. I'd lost a sister but discovered strength I never knew existed. "Think she'll appeal?" Emma asked, ever practical. "Certainly," Catherine had warned us, but appeals require new evidence or procedural errors. This trial was textbook clean. She'll serve her full sentence. The numbers remained staggering. 2.3 million stolen over 24 years. 43 direct victims identified. Countless secondary victims through damaged credit and destroyed trust. 3 children growing up without their mother. 1 baby who'd never know her biological family. But there was victory in those numbers too. Future victims protected from Madison's schemes. Restitution ordered from seized assets. Credit repair for those she'd damaged. Justice serving its purpose of consequence and deterrent. That night, I found myself looking through old photos again. Madison at 8, missing front teeth, grinning at the camera. Madison at 16, beautiful and already calculating behind bright eyes. Madison at 25, holding infant Aiden while wearing jewelry I now knew was bought with stolen funds. Stolen. Where had my sister gone? When had the laughing girl transformed into the criminal who'd threatened me, even as shackles bound her wrists? Was it gradual corruption, or had the darkness always existed waiting for opportunity? The questions had no answers. Psychology could explain antisocial personality disorder. Circumstances could contextualize choices. But nothing could bridge the gap between the sister I'd loved and the stranger who'd systematically destroyed me. Emma found me with the photos, mourning who she could have been, I corrected. Mourning the family we might have had if she'd chosen differently. "We have a family," Emma reminded me. "Smaller, scarred, but honest. That's worth more than Madison's illusions ever were." My daughter's wisdom continued to amaze me. At 16, she understood truths that had taken me 40 years to grasp. That love couldn't excuse evil, that family bonds didn't justify enabling, that sometimes the greatest act of love was allowing consequences. The verdict had been read. 45 counts, 45 confirmations of guilt. Madison would trade designer clothes for prison orange marble countertops for steel bunks, stolen luxury for earned confinement. But the real verdict was written in the peace finally settling over our apartment, in Emma's renewed focus on her future, in my ability to check mail without fear, in the simple freedom of living without lies. Madison had promised I'd regret this day, but sitting with my daughter planning tomorrows Madison couldn't steal, I felt only relief. The verdict was guilty, but we were finally free. 6 weeks later, the federal courthouse scene repeated for Madison's sentencing. But this time, I sat with a different kind of weight on my shoulders. The victim's restitution paperwork filled 3 binders each page, representing a life Madison had derailed. As the court's designated victim representative, I'd spent weeks documenting losses, gathering statements, and calculating the true cost of my sister's crimes. Judge Harrison reviewed the pre-sentencing report with grave attention. Madison sat shackled at the defense table, her designer clothes replaced by jail orange, her pregnancy glow faded to institutional pallor. Baby Hope was now 3 months old, thriving with her adoptive family who'd sent photos they thought Madison should see. She'd refused them. Before we proceed to sentencing, Judge Harrison announced, "I'll hear victim impact statements. Ms. Mitchell, as the representative, you may begin." I approached the podium with my prepared statement, but first looked directly at Madison. She met my gaze with defiance that couldn't quite mask the fear beneath. "Your Honor," I began, "I speak today for 43 direct victims who trusted Madison Mitchell with their friendship, employment, or family bonds. Collectively, we lost $2.3 million. But the financial theft pales compared to the emotional devastation." I read excerpts from victim statements. The elderly woman who now lived in subsidized housing after Madison drained her savings. The college student who couldn't graduate because ruined credit prevented loan approval. The small business owner who'd closed shop after Madison's embezzlement. Each story another weight on the scales of justice. "Madison Mitchell didn't just steal money," I continued. "She stole futures, dreams, and the ability to trust. She weaponized love, exploited kindness, and turned family bonds into opportunities for fraud. The only remorse she's shown is for being caught." Madison's attorney had coached her to appear contrite, but rage flickered across her features as I detailed her crime's impact. When I described Emma selling Christmas gifts to donate to victims, Madison actually smirked. "The defendant's actions have created generational trauma," I concluded. "Her children undergo therapy to understand their mother's crimes. Her newborn will grow up adopted because Madison prioritized theft over motherhood. She chose this path with 45 separate criminal decisions. We asked the court to impose maximum sentencing to protect future victims from her predation." Other victims spoke each testimony, adding weight to the prosecution's request. Jake described their children's confusion and pain. The foster mother of Baby Hope shared the infant's medical needs, complicated by stress during pregnancy. Even Madison's former employer spoke about giving her multiple chances only to discover years of systematic theft. When Madison's turn came to speak before sentencing, Vincent Crawley helped her to the podium. She'd prepared a statement, hands shaking as she unfolded the paper. "I stand before you a broken woman." She began, voice calculated for maximum sympathy. "Mental illness clouded my judgment. Postpartum depression drove me to desperate acts. I'm not a criminal. I'm a mother who made terrible mistakes trying to provide for her children." She spoke of childhood trauma, of feeling unloved and overlooked. She blamed Jake's fictional gambling society's pressure on mothers, even social media, for creating impossible standards. Everyone and everything except herself bore responsibility. "I beg this court's mercy," she concluded through manufactured tears. "My children need their mother. My baby doesn't even know me. Haven't I suffered enough? Haven't we all suffered enough?" Judge Harrison's expression remained stone throughout her performance. When she finished, he shuffled his papers with deliberate precision before speaking. "Ms. Mitchell," he began, I've presided over hundreds of cases in my career. Rarely have I encountered a defendant so utterly lacking in genuine remorse. You stand convicted of 45 felonies spanning 24 years. That's not mental illness or desperation. That's a career built on destroying others. Madison's tears dried, instantly replaced by the calculating look I'd come to know. You've blamed everyone except yourself, the judge continued. Your sister, your husband, your parents, society itself. But the evidence shows meticulous planning, careful execution, and escalating criminal behavior. You stole from dying relatives, bankrupted elderly neighbors, and destroyed your own children's stability. He lifted the pre-sentencing report. The psychiatric evaluation confirms you understand right from wrong. Your personality disorder explains your lack of empathy, but doesn't excuse your crimes. You chose to steal rather than work. You chose lies over truth. You chose crime over legitimate struggle. Regarding your children, his voice hardened. You involved them in your schemes, teaching them to lie and steal. You plan to kidnap them internationally to avoid prosecution. You've shown yourself unfit as a parent through actions, not circumstances. Madison gripped the defense table, knuckles white, as Judge Harrison continued. I've considered the prosecution's request for maximum sentencing. I've reviewed the sentencing guidelines. I've weighed your lack of prior convictions against the scope and duration of your crimes. The courtroom held its breath. Madison Michelle Mitchell, you are hereby sentenced to 25 years in federal prison without possibility of parole. Additionally, you're ordered to pay full restitution of $2.3 million to your victims. Your parental rights are terminated for all minor children. Upon release, you'll serve 10 years probation with mandatory mental health treatment. Madison's scream pierced the courtroom. 25 years, you're stealing my life. My babies won't even know me. You stole 43 lives, Judge Harrison responded coldly. Your children are better off without your influence. This sentence reflects the severity of your crimes and protects society from your continued predation. I'll appeal, Madison shrieked as officers moved to escort her. This isn't over, Aurora. You did this. You destroyed everything. But her threats fell on deaf ears. The courtroom cleared as Madison was dragged away, her screams echoing down the corridor until a door slammed, cutting off the sound. 25 years of silence would follow. In the aftermath, victims hugged and cried. The sentence wouldn't restore their losses, but it provided justice and protection. Madison would be in her 60s upon release, her children grown with families of their own, her victims hopefully healed. It's really over, Emma said quietly beside me. The criminal part, I agreed. Now comes rebuilding. The rebuilding had already begun. The FBI had successfully frozen Madison's offshore accounts, recovering nearly $400,000 for victim restitution. The house sale would generate another $500,000. Not full restoration, but something. My parents had downsized to a small condo, their retirement modest but manageable. They decided against visiting Madison in prison, choosing to focus on supporting their grandchildren instead. The enabling patterns of a lifetime had finally broken. Daniel's redemption continued at the bakery, where his honesty about his past actually increased business. People appreciated someone who'd owned mistakes and changed course. He'd never practice real estate again, but he'd found peace in flour and yeast. Emma's senior year had begun with her identity theft awareness campaign gaining national attention. Colleges took notice, offering scholarships to a student who'd transformed personal trauma into public service. The stolen college fund had been replaced by opportunities earned through resilience. Even Marcus had grown from the experience. He'd established a small fund for Emma, not enough to erase abandonment, but acknowledging responsibility. He attended her presentations about identity theft, sitting quietly in the back, learning about the daughter he'd missed knowing. But the most profound change was in Madison's children. Jake had moved them to a new school district started fresh, without their mother's shadow. Therapy helped them process the confusion and pain. Aiden had stopped lying, understanding consequences through his mother's example. Sophia no longer performed for attention, finding genuine connections. Baby Hope would grow up as Hope Williams, adopted into a loving family who'd tell her the truth age appropriately. Her biological mother was sick in a way that made her hurt people. But Hope was loved, wanted, and would never doubt her worth, despite her origins. Catherine Walsh closed our legal relationship with satisfaction. "You did something most victims can't," she told me. "You stood up to family, endured public scrutiny, and saw justice through. Madison counted on your kindness, preventing consequences. Your strength saved dozens of future victims." Patricia Coleman published her follow-up article about the sentencing, including resources for identity theft victims and family fraud survivors. The piece went viral, sparking conversations about enabling versus accountability, family loyalty versus justice. But life continued beyond Madison's crimes. I returned to full-time nursing, finding purpose in healing rather than legal battles. The children in my ward didn't care about viral videos or family drama. They needed competent, caring medical attention, which I could provide with renewed focus. One evening, while helping Emma with her college essays, she asked an unexpected question. "Do you think Madison was born evil, or did something make her that way?" I considered carefully. "I think she was born with challenges, personality disorders that made empathy difficult. But she chose how to handle those challenges. Every time she stole, she chose. Every lie was a decision. Maybe she couldn't feel guilt like others, but she understood consequences and decided they didn't apply to her. So it was both," Emma concluded, "nature and nurture, but ultimately choice." Ultimately choice. I agreed. That's why she's serving 25 years, not for being born different, but for choosing to weaponize that difference against others. As winter approached, I received a letter forwarded through the prosecutor's office. Madison had written from federal prison, her handwriting still recognizable, despite institutional pen and paper. I almost threw it away unread, but decided truth required facing even unwanted communications. The letter was short, bitter, and unrepentant. "Aurora, enjoy your victory while it lasts. 25 years isn't forever. I'll serve every day planning my return. You, Emma. Everyone who betrayed me will remember my name. Prison is just another place to learn new skills. See you in 2049. Madison." I shared the letter with authorities, who added it to her file as evidence of continued threat. Then I burned it, watching her poison turn to ash and drift away on evening wind. Madison could spend 25 years nursing hatred. I had better things to do with time. Emma graduated high school with honors, her essay about overcoming family fraud winning a national competition. She chose a college 3 states away, far from Madison's shadow, but close enough to visit. Her major, criminal justice, with a focus on victim advocacy. "I want to help people like us," she explained. "Families torn apart by crime, especially when the criminal is someone they loved. They need to know survival is possible." As I helped her pack for college, I found myself reflecting on the journey from that first foreclosure notice to this moment of triumph. Madison had tried to steal everything: money, identity, reputation, family, bonds. She'd succeeded in taking material things, but failed at destroying what mattered. We'd survived with integrity intact. We'd chosen justice over enabling. We'd rebuilt stronger foundations from honesty's rubble. Madison sat in federal prison, but we were truly free. The aftermath of her crimes would ripple for years. Credit reports to monitor therapy, to continue relationships, to rebuild. But we faced it without fear, knowing the predator was caged, and consequences had finally caught their architect. 25 years. Madison would miss her children's graduations, weddings, grandchildren. She'd traded family for fraud, love for luxury, connection for crime. The aftermath of those choices was a concrete cell, and decades to consider what she'd thrown away. But for her victims, aftermath meant healing. It meant Emma heading to college on scholarships earned through strength. It meant my parents finding peace in truth. It meant sleep without fear and mail without terror. Madison had promised to see us in 2049. By then, Emma would be 41 with a career and family of her own. I'd be approaching 70, hopefully surrounded by grandchildren who'd never know their great-aunt's poison. Madison would emerge to a world that had moved on without her, where her threats held no power, and her manipulations found no purchase. The aftermath wasn't just survival, it was triumph over someone who'd tried to destroy us. Madison had stolen money and identities, but she'd failed to steal our humanity. In the end, that made all the difference. 1 year after Madison's sentencing, I stood in the living room of a house I'd never imagined owning. Nothing fancy like Madison's stolen mansion, just a modest 3-bedroom rental in a quiet neighborhood where Emma could finish her senior year in peace. The insurance settlement from the identity theft claim combined with partial restitution from Madison's seized assets had given us this fresh start. Emma burst through the door, acceptance letter in hand. "I got into Georgetown," she announced, joy radiating from every word. "Full scholarship for their criminal justice program." I pulled her into a fierce hug, tears flowing freely. The college fund Madison had stolen had been replaced by something better. Emma's own determination transforming tragedy into triumph. "There's more," Emma said, pulling back with sparkling eyes. "They want me to speak at freshman orientation about overcoming adversity. My story about Aunt Madison and identity theft might help other students protect themselves." Madison had tried to steal Emma's future. Instead, she'd inadvertently created a powerful advocate who'd spend her career protecting others from similar crimes. That evening, we hosted a celebration dinner. My parents arrived early, Mom carrying her famous lasagna dad, moving steadier these days with his new physical therapy routine. They'd sold the big house, downsized to a condo, and found peace in simpler living. "We have something to tell you," Dad announced as we set the table. "We've decided to put Madison's portion of any inheritance into a trust for her children. They shouldn't suffer more for their mother's choices." It was the right decision, ensuring Aiden, Sophia, and Hope would have some resources despite their mother's crimes. Madison had stolen their stability, but the family she'd betrayed would provide what she couldn't. Daniel arrived with his girlfriend Lisa, a fellow baker he'd met while rebuilding his life. His hands, once soft from office work, now bore the calluses of honest labor. He'd lost his real estate empire, but gained something invaluable: self-respect. "I passed my 2-year milestone," he announced proudly. 2 years since I self-reported the fraud Madison blackmailed me into. My probation officer says I'm a model of rehabilitation. Jake brought the children, Aiden and Sophia, racing to hug me while he carried a covered dish. The divorce had been finalized 6 months ago, giving him full custody, with Madison's parental rights terminated. He'd started dating a teacher from the kids' new school, someone who understood their complicated family history and loved them anyway. "How are they doing?" I asked quietly while the children played with Emma. "Better every day," Jake replied. Aiden stopped lying completely. Sophia's anxiety has decreased. They understand their mom is sick and made bad choices, but they know they're loved and safe. Even Marcus made an appearance, invited by Emma despite their complicated history. He'd maintained his financial support and gradually earned a small place in his daughter's life. Not as the father who'd abandoned her, but as the flawed human trying to make amends. "I'm proud of you," he told Emma simply. "You became extraordinary despite my failures. Your strength comes from your mother, not me." "It comes from me," Emma corrected with quiet confidence. "Mom gave me the foundation, but I chose what to build on it." Grace arrived last, carrying a cake decorated with Georgetown's colors. Her forensic accounting work on Madison's case had earned national recognition, leading to a promotion and speaking engagements about financial fraud detection. "I have news too," she announced. "The FBI wants me to consult on a task force targeting family-based financial crimes. Your sister's case has become a textbook study in how predators exploit family bonds." As we gathered around the table, I looked at each face. These people had stood by me through Madison's campaign of destruction. They'd testified in court, endured public scrutiny, and chosen justice over comfortable lies. We'd emerged scarred but stronger, a family forged in truth rather than blood. "Before we eat," I said, raising my glass of sparkling cider, "I want to share something. The prosecutor's office called today. They've recovered another $200,000 from Madison's hidden accounts. It'll be distributed among her victims next month. Cheers erupted around the table. Every dollar returned meant someone's life partially restored, credit rebuilt, dreams revived. Madison had stolen millions, but justice was clawing back whatever it could find. There's also this, I continued, pulling out an envelope. A letter from Hope's adoptive family. They want to establish contact, let her know her biological family when she's older. They're asking if we'd be willing to be part of her life. The table fell silent, processing this unexpected development. Baby Hope, now toddling and talking, would grow up knowing her mother's crimes, but also knowing she had biological family who'd chosen justice over enabling. Of course we should, Emma said firmly. Hope is innocent. She deserves to know she comes from more than just Madison's darkness. Agreement rippled around the table. Hope would have adoptive parents who loved her, but also aunts, uncles, cousins, and grandparents who'd ensure she understood her full story. Madison's final victim would become our collective responsibility to nurture. As dinner progressed, conversation flowed naturally. No longer dominated by Madison's latest crisis or manipulation, we talked about futures rather than past wounds. Emma's college plans, Daniel's bakery expansion, Jake's children thriving in their new stability. Even Marcus shared his work establishing programs for absent fathers seeking reconnection. You know what I don't miss, Mom said suddenly during dessert. The anxiety, never knowing what crisis Madison would create next, what lie we'd have to navigate. This peace, even bought with such pain, is worth everything. Dad nodded, squeezing her hand. We enabled her for too long, thinking we were helping. Aurora, you saved us all by refusing to continue the pattern. Even Madison, in a way. Prison might be the only thing that stops her from escalating to worse crimes. Or it might teach her new ones. Daniel pointed out, remembering Madison's threatening letter. Then we'll be ready, I said simply. She'll serve her 25 years while we live our lives. If she emerges still vengeful, she'll find us stronger, wiser, and surrounded by truth instead of secrets. After dinner, as everyone helped clear dishes and pack leftovers, Aunt Margaret called. At 80 now, she'd become even more formidable, managing the family trust with iron determination. I wanted you to know, she said, her voice strong despite the years. I've revised the trust. Madison's children will receive their shares at 25, old enough to resist any manipulation if their mother tries to resurface. And Aurora, I've named you executor. You've proven you'll protect the vulnerable even against family. Another responsibility, but one I'd accept gladly. Madison had taught us all that family bonds could be weaponized. Now we'd ensure future generations had protection built into their inheritance. As the evening wound down, people began leaving with hugs and promises to gather again soon. Jake loaded sleeping children into his car. Daniel and Lisa headed to their late shift at the bakery. Marcus shook my hand formally, before Emma surprised him with a quick hug, progress measured in small gestures. Soon just Emma and I remained sitting on our small porch, watching stars appear. The same stars Madison and I had wished on as children before choices divided us into criminal and victim. Do you ever wonder if things could have been different? Emma asked. If Madison had gotten help earlier. Every day, I admitted. But wondering doesn't change reality. Madison chose her path with every forged signature, every stolen dollar, every manipulative tear. We can't save someone who refuses rescue. Will you ever forgive her? I considered the question that had haunted me since Madison's arrest. I'd forgiven the sister I thought I had mourned her like a death. But the woman serving 25 years in federal prison, she's a stranger who wore my sister's face while trying to destroy me. How do you forgive someone who shows no remorse? Emma leaned against my shoulder, my brilliant daughter who'd found strength in adversity. You don't. You just build something better from the ruins she left behind. And we had. From the ashes of Madison's destruction had risen a stronger family bound by choice rather than mere blood. Emma heading to Georgetown on merit rather than stolen money. my parents finding peace in truth rather than comfortable lies, Daniel discovering integrity in fresh-baked bread rather than fraudulent real estate, even Madison's children thriving despite their mother's absence, proof that cycles could be broken. The resolution wasn't just Madison's imprisonment or recovered funds, it was this moment on a modest porch surrounded by love earned through honesty. It was Emma's acceptance letter and Hope's future connections. It was sleep without fear and mail without terror. It was the simple freedom of living without lies. Madison had 24 more years to serve. By then I'd be retired, hopefully surrounded by grandchildren who'd know their great aunt only as a cautionary tale. Emma would have built her career protecting others from predators like Madison. Hope would be an adult raised with love instead of manipulation. Even Madison's older children would have families of their own cycles of theft replaced by patterns of integrity. "Look," Emma pointed at a shooting star streaking across the darkness. "Make a wish." But I had nothing left to wish for. Madison's crimes had taken us through hell, but we'd emerged refined rather than destroyed. Every dream she'd tried to steal had been replaced by something stronger, because we'd fought for it. The little girl who'd held my hand during thunderstorms was gone, replaced by a federal inmate who'd threatened revenge. But the family she'd tried to destroy had not only survived, but thrived. Love hadn't made us weak. It had made us strong enough to choose justice. Truth hadn't torn us apart. It had rebuilt us on firmer foundations. In the end, Madison's greatest crime was against herself. She'd traded family for fraud connection for Khan's love for luxury that turned to prison gray. Her victims had recovered or would recover. Her family had grown stronger through surviving her. But Madison would serve every day of her sentence, knowing she'd destroyed her own life more thoroughly than she'd managed to destroy anyone else's. "Ready for bed?" I asked Emma as the stars multiplied overhead. "In a minute," she said, pulling out her phone to capture the moment. "I want to remember this. All of it. How we survived, how we grew, how we chose truth even when lies would have been easier." I smiled watching my daughter document our journey's end and new beginning. Madison had stolen money, identities, and trust, but she'd failed to steal our humanity, our hope, or our ability to transform pain into purpose. The resolution wasn't just an ending, but a transformation. We were no longer victims of Madison's crimes, but survivors who'd chosen justice, families who'd chosen truth, and individuals who'd chosen growth over bitterness. 25 years. Madison would count every day in federal prison, while we lived lives she'd tried to steal. The best revenge wasn't revenge at all. It was the simple act of thriving despite her worst efforts. It was love triumphing over greed, integrity, conquering deception and truth, outlasting every carefully crafted lie. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new reasons to be grateful we'd chosen the hard path of justice over the easy road of enabling. But tonight, sitting under stars with my daughter, surrounded by the peace Madison's absence created, I knew we'd already won everything that mattered. The story that began with a foreclosure notice I'd never signed had ended with a future Madison couldn't steal, and that was the greatest resolution of all. If you've made it this far, you've witnessed the devastating impact of family fraud and the courage required to stand against it. Have you or someone you know faced betrayal from within your own family? How did you find the strength to choose justice over blood bonds? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might be the beacon of hope someone else needs to hear. If this story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more powerful narratives about overcoming life's most challenging betrayals. Share this with someone who needs to know they're not alone in facing family deception. Remember, choosing truth isn't betrayal. It's the highest form of love. Sometimes protecting family means protecting them from themselves. Thank you for joining me on this journey. May you always have the courage to stand for what's right, even when it costs everything you thought you had. Stay strong, stay honest, and remember, integrity is the one thing no one can steal from you.